All right, shalom, shalom, welcome, peace. Hopefully, this is working correctly. I am going to have to whisper and keep my voice down somewhat, so just letting you know that. But prayerfully, you'll be able to hear me on the podcast. Hopefully, you can hear me on TikTok. Hopefully, you can hear me on YouTube. Okay, I am whispering somewhat. I do have to keep my voice down, so I will ask before we get too deep into this. Can you guys hear me? I do have to keep my voice down where I am at this moment in time. But prayerfully, you can hear me wherever you are. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? I am having to keep my voice down. I have a deep voice, and I do have people. We're not quite at our destination. We're in the city that we're supposed to be in. But if you guys didn't realize, a bunch of stuff happened with a bunch of people's finances last night, which was wild, including my own. So I can kind of use my finances, and I kind of can't. So I couldn't prayerfully praise Yah that we were taken care of. A few finances I have, I couldn't really put them where we needed to make sure that we were able to get to where we needed to, or in where we needed to last night. But we were able to be successful, and praise Yah for the help that you guys provide. Hopefully, everything should be back on track for a few hours. Matter of fact, I even tried to see if we could send some people some help yesterday, and apparently Cash App just crapped out, crashed. Don't know what the exact issue was, but it was not working. So I got a few people that were asking us for some help on some things, and we couldn't even help you. So trying to get things in order. Somebody's supposed to contact me within some hours. I'm assuming probably about the time we finish this live or so. Somebody should be contacting me. So just keep us in prayer. But we did make it to, we are in Sedona, Arizona. So we're doing what we need to do. Thankfully, you guys are on. Hopefully, once again, can you hear me? Some people said on TikTok they can hear, I believe. Can you hear me on YouTube? I'm also trying to use Wi-Fi from the outside, so I might have to switch YouTube off and come back on. If you guys can't hear me, can you hear me on YouTube? Can somebody else just let me know? Can you hear me on TikTok? And I guess I'm going to hope that you guys can hear me on the podcast because you guys will get this later. Con? Okay. You can hear me on YouTube? Okay, cool. So I'll make the assumption that they can hear me on the podcast, and then on Facebook when y'all come on, we'll ask the same question. Praise Yah. Alrighty. So I apologize. We'll be hopefully in a steady place tomorrow. I mean today. Today feels like tomorrow. I literally laid down in the bed, and I did happen to get some sleep. My wife, praise Yah, was able to take a few hours off my load of traveling yesterday, but we got here about 2:30, maybe 2:45, somewhere in there, which is about okay. I guess somebody locked their car. I guess they assumed they saw a black guy out here, so they need to make sure the car was locked. Um, but we got here about 2:30 ish, so that's about 5:30 you guys' time. And then had to get the dog settled. Everybody got in by the time I finally was able to lay down, shower, all that stuff. I basically just kind of closed my eyes for about 30 minutes. So prayerfully, I'll have some energy, and I do have some energy. I just once again want to apologize. I'm having to whisper a little bit at least to start to be, aware of those that are around me. But hopefully, y'all are doing well. Thank you for being on. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Thank you, everybody, to the moderators, Minister SF, SOC. We appreciate you. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voices and speaking the unspoken. We appreciate your presence again. Thank you for being on. Thank you for spending some time with me. Before the rising over here, I've got a profound respect every time I come over to the West Coast and realize how early you guys are getting up to participate and help out with things and all that. Thank you, Carla, for giving us that yes again. And Juanetta, we appreciate you, but I got a profound respect because the sun is not close to being up. I think we got another hour and a half before you'll finally see what's behind me. But hopefully you can see and hear me well enough. Praise y'all. Alrighty. So just pray for us. Those who are waiting on us, pray for us that Cash App and some other stuff finally starts working again last night or yesterday. I didn't notice it till around 5 p.m. Eastern New York time yesterday. Apparently everything Cash App wise is shut down. So those of you who are waiting on something from us, we're finally getting in a position where we can start sending some stuff to you again. We haven't forgotten about you. I saw some of your messages and even some of the requests that you made. We were trying to get some stuff to you, and I'm literally waiting to be able to use Cash App. That's all we're waiting on at this point. So some of you should be able to get a blessing that you've been waiting on for a little bit. And we're praying for you, and those that can continue to sow into this community, that we can bless each other when needed. We thank you for doing that as well. Praise God. So, alrighty, and thank you for being on. We give all praise and honor to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to the Most High for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. We thank you guys for being on. Today is just Q&A. We haven't done Q&A. I don't think we've done Q&A in this series yet. Maybe we have, but I don't remember doing so. So during our series, we try to do Q&A. We've done a series so far called Who's Listening? And so we wanted to give you guys an opportunity with any questions, comments, or concerns, whether it's things that we've gone over in the series, or if you feel like you just have something else you'd like to ask a question about, I will do my best to answer. Maybe some people in the chat can help to answer as well. I don't know everything, but those things which I do know, I will do my best to give you the best answer that I can. Praise God. But let's say hello to everybody real quick, and then we'll let you guys take this where you want it to go. I'm at your behest. I'm at your request. I'm following the direction that you guys lead, and really by the Holy Spirit, prayerfully that we're led by. So let's just see what happens. Feel free to give any questions, comments, concerns that you like. So hello to everybody. Let's say hello real quick. How you doing, Sister Juanetta? How you doing, Sister Carla? How you doing, MIT Stephen? How you doing, Sister Nadine? How you doing, Cedric? Thank you for the love. Appreciate you. Is that young Rowney, I believe? How you doing, Minister Nice? How you doing, Cedric? If I didn't say so already, child of the 12 tribes. How you doing, Sister Deja? How you doing, Gertrude? Did I say hello, Sister Nadine? I'm not sure. How you doing, Dishmaria? How you doing, Sister Monica? Sister Monica, once again, prayerfully I'll be able to call you back today. Just been having a rough time with signal. How you doing? I am King. How you doing, Miss Betty? We got quite a few Bettys that come on here. Praise y'all. Thank y'all for being on. How you doing, Drea? How you doing, Tish? Old Head Energy, Wavy Davy, Sister Karen, Peace Be Well Fitness. Old Head Energy, I think I said hello. Thank you again. Appreciate you. Money Green, Sister Iska, Sister Knight, Mavis. I believe this is the same Mavis Knight. If it's not, forgive me. Hello, Mavis. DB, everybody, we appreciate you. 114-202-3114. Remind you of Paul, time doesn't exist. Alrighty. How you doing, Sister Judith? By the way, Sister Judith is going to be on at about 12 p.m. Eastern New York time to do her live session on her TikTok channel for the raw food diet. So if you'd like to be able to come over there and check out what she's doing, feel free to do so. And if you want to catch up on some of the stuff she's already given us before in the past, we have some of those recorded on our YouTube channel. So feel free to be able to catch up. How you doing, Sister Irena, Grimrose, everybody. I think if I miss your name, charge to my head, not to my heart. Am I all right? Yeah. So I have to be low because I got a really booming voice if I'm not careful. And, it's late or early, however you want to look at it over here, Pacific time. So I'm going to be careful with how loud I get, at least for a couple hours. But as long as you guys can hear me, it should be fine. You said everybody locks their car when they go away short. So the person who locked their car is inside their room, didn't leave their room, and saw me through their window, looked and said, hey, let me make sure I lock the car, even though my car is right behind me and I haven't left my balcony. But thank you for being on CD Fly Free and knowing all of what I'm talking about and knowing how the person acted when I first met him. Appreciate you for making an assumption about my assumption, I guess. But I appreciate your presence if you're still on anyways. It's awesome when people do that, right? How you doing, Be Real? How you doing, D? How you doing, Serenity? Alrighty. So once again, this is Q&A. So whatever questions you guys have, I can just kind of start randomly, but whatever questions you guys want to go, fire away. People always say nobody answers the question. We shy away from questions, so we run away. Let's however you guys would like to. Yeah, so we were going to elaborate. Uh, can we elaborate more on Luke 12 towards the end? Sure, we can start there. How you doing, Sister Sage? And I'm doing well. I don't know if it's OG Rich, I'm assuming. It's not Og Rich, it's probably OG Rich. So how you doing? Thanks for asking. I hope you're doing well. So yeah, we can elaborate. Let's go. We'll go to Luke 12. And that's where we left off yesterday. So we were looking at doing that anyway, so we can start there. Right? Let's go to Luke 12. Because we talked about Luke 12 and we focused on verse 51, even though we went verses 49 through 53. And we did say we would start at verses 54 through 50 through the end of it. I can remember verse 54 through the end. And we did actually go through some of that, but we didn't, or we said we would, make it more clear today. So we can definitely do that. So if you have your Bibles, if you're able to turn, or if you even are just listening, or you're paying attention, or if you have your app, if you got your Bible, if you'd like to turn there with us, we're going to Luke chapter 12, and we're going to start at verse 54. And once you have it, if you want to say amen, say I'm with you, say I got it, etc. Because we don't want to start without you. We want to make sure everybody sees it at the same time. We figure that you should all know what's going on. You should read it for yourself, and you shouldn't just assume that anybody's telling you something at any time. Or even if you listen to this later on, you go back, look at the recording, feel free to go back and watch this and make sure that what we're saying actually lines up with stuff. Because a lot of people will tell you anything, right? So we want to make sure that you see that we're not just coming off of stuff spitting nonsense, right? So we're going to go to Luke chapter 12, verse 54. We'll read all the way through verse 59. I'll go ahead and stand. I'll be leaning over, but I'll stand to my feet. We do that if you're able to. You don't have to tell me if you are able to or not. But if you're able to, just feel like if you're able to stand with us as we read the word, feel free to. Okay, Sister Carla, I see your question. We'll try to come back to it right after. For some reason, I forget your question. Please hold me accountable, but we'll come back to it right after this, okay? Praise God. Ask for prayer for the family. Okay, Sister Gertrude and Heavenly Father, we ask right now as we're turning to Luke 12:54. Before we get into this word, we know that your word says that you'll never leave us nor forsake us. Sister Gertrude is going through something, or her family is going through something, that she might just be standing in the gap right now. Yeah, we trust you. We come together. We focus on you. We appreciate you. And we stand attentive to your word. We stand at attention, as we talked about yesterday. We don't just stand, but we stand attentively, knowing that you can answer whatever ailment that she has. So, yeah, we come together as a group, as a family, as a body, as SOC, as your people, and just simply touch and agree that your will be done right now, that what needs to be covered will be covered, and that as long as obedience is given, every part of being a living sacrifice shall be honored. It's in the mighty message name of Yahweh Elohim that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect that prayer by saying together, Amen. Amen. Alrighty. So we're at Luke chapter 12, verse 54. How you doing, Kelly? We're at Luke chapter 12, verse 54. We're going to stand for the reading of Yah's word. We're going to end up reading Luke 12, 54 through 59. And it reads as follows, okay? It says this, it says, and he said also to the people, when ye see a cloud rise out of the west, straightway ye say, there cometh a shower, and so it is. And when ye see the south wind blow, ye say, there will be heat, and it cometh to pass. Ye hypocrites, ye can discern the face of the sky and of the earth, but how is it that ye do not discern this time? Yea, and why even of yourselves judge ye not what is right? When thou goest with thine adversary to the magistrate, as thou art in the way, give diligence that thou mayest be delivered from him, lest he hale thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and the officer cast thee into prison. I tell thee, thou shalt not depart thence, till thou hast paid the very last mite. All right, we just read Luke chapter 12, verse 54 through 59. We know that the word of Yah was blessed before we even got up today, and we praise Yah for those who are with us and being consistent in their walking in the way. Alrighty. So the question was asked, can we expound upon that more? Now, if you remember what we talked about yesterday and how we started yesterday, we were talking about Luke chapter 12, and we focused on verse 51, where Yehoshua asked a question, and we're talking about, we always come from a lawful perspective here, right? We must, because these people, including the Messiah, Yehoshua, are people who are involved in the law. So when they speak in lawful terminology, we should make sure that we think about law, as much as we've been told not to learn law, but these people are using the law quite often. Right? The people of Israel, the nation of Israel, are using law. The people who wrote the Bible, or even spoke the things that are written in the Bible, or even the things that you feel might be, some of you feel like it's not supposed to be taken literally, but even still, even if you don't think it's supposed to be taken literally, it's still law. And by the way, the reason why a lot of people get messed up so much by Western law is because Western law, whether you believe in the Bible or not, is based off of the Bible. And therefore, they try to flip things to make you give up permission to do certain things, right? So we should always look at things in a lawful thought process, in a lawful vein, in legal terminology, and see what is happening concerning law. If not, we're going to get dog walked out here by people. You know, how you doing, Sister Sherry? How you doing, Everett? So here we have the law, right? I'm going on in lawful terms that we talked about in Luke chapter 12, verse 51. You see this thing that starts off with saying, "Suppose ye that I have come that there would be peace on earth." He said, I did not come that there would be peace, but he said, I came that there would be division. This is the Messiah talking, right? We talked about this yesterday. And our theme for yesterday in this series, we're talking about who's listening, but our theme for yesterday, we're talking about specifically who's, in this theme, who's listening. Yesterday, we're talking about there are those that are prepared for peace and those that are prepared for war. And we don't want people to have cognitive dissonance. So the mindset that we have to have, how you doing, Big Brother Thomas? The mindset that we have to have is simple. We should be at peace. Hear what I'm saying, right? We should be people who are at peace within ourselves, peace within our diaspora, peace within the kingdom, peace within those who share the beliefs and standards that we do. However, to those that do not, decisions will have to be made to where they will be with us or against us, because it's not really us, but they'll be with Yah or against Yah. How you doing, Big Brother Vincent? Right? So if somebody's going to be against us, they're really against Yah. If they're going to be for us, they're really going to be for Yah. That's the way it works, right? So Yehoshua says, if you're going to roll with me, there's going to be division. He even goes to verse 53 of Luke chapter 12, right, where he says specifically, hey, if you're going to deal with me, you have to realize that I've come that mother-in-law would be against daughter. And I'm sorry, that mother would be against daughter, and father against son, and mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, father-in-law against son-in-law. Families will be broken up over this, not over anything you've done, but over the truth. There will be family members. There will be family members who will never treat you the same because you decided to walk in truth. Does it include spouses? It might, prayerfully not, because the Bible says that our actions or our love or the way that we walk can be the thing that allows a spouse to change. And the Bible tells us if a spouse doesn't want to leave, even if they're not ready to give their lives to the word, but if a spouse doesn't want to leave us, we're not in the position to just leave them, to just divorce them just because they don't listen, right? And just because it's hard to deal with a non-believer doesn't mean we just roll out. But it could if your spouse starts getting to a place where they start, giving that porneia or false image of marriage, or mistreating, or cheating, or doing things that obviously are not righteous and righteous enough for us to stay, right? And like we talked about yesterday, right? We pray for that yoke, right? Equally yoked. The yoke is equal because the yoke is one. So we're equally tied to the yoke, but you have two separate people. So that in and of itself, two people becoming one, or two people who have to be willing to be tied to the same yoke. The yoke is what allows us to work the field together and make sure that we follow the voice of the demands of the master, right? It's two oxen, where you have to have a specific type of yoke, because oxen can't use just any type of yoke. So oxen have to have one yoke that's made for oxen. You have to have two oxen that have two different types of abilities that help, so that they can plow together as one, as the master gives them utterance to, or command to, or even has taught them to, so that they might have a reward when they finish, together to be able to break bread and eat and chill out and relax and be prepared for the next time they have to carry a load, right? And thank you for the love. Appreciating how you doing, KK, and how you doing, MIT Tracy. How you doing, Sister Patricia? So you see, we have a lot of different things that are going on regarding that, and we have to be aware. When we're talking about that equally yoked, it doesn't mean two equal people. It means two. The context is two cattle that come together. So if we're going to be equally yoked as human beings, there's a human yoke. What yokes us together as a human must be is what's designed for us and our humanity. And then two people must decide to be in that one yoke, which means that we're not worried about also too. Here's another thing when we talk about equally yoked that we don't bring up because we don't comprehend culture or we don't even bring culture to the table. So if two people are equally yoked, it means that the yoke is only designed for two. Your children are not yoked to this. Your family members are not yoked to this. Your mom or your daddy are not yoked to this, right? Even your pastor, although he might help you, she might help you to get through some things, give you some tools. They are not yoked to this. How you doing, Sister Christina? How you doing, Sister Helen? You're yoked to this. You got to make some decisions based off of the yoke that you decided to take on. And there's certain things that you're not even supposed to carry in your yoke because the Messiah says that give me some of that because my yoke is easy. I can carry your burdens. You can't. So even in that, there's certain things that we put on our spouse that we should put on the Most High. There's certain things that shouldn't even be. You shouldn't even be yoked to because you should already have been given it to the Messiah and allowed him to carry that. So when we talked about being equally yoked, we got to figure out sometimes, are you even bringing things and tying them to this yoke, things that don't belong? Are you bringing in extra people? Are you bringing in extra relationships? You know, when you were in a relationship with old boy 10 years ago, and now you got a relationship with somebody the last 3 years, and he's been doing what he's supposed to do, but you keep remembering what the old boy did. And so now you are arguing with it, and now you're trying to yoke somebody into your relationship and have this weird spiritual menage a trois that doesn't make sense, where you trying to go to sleep in your bedroom, but you keep arguing things because somebody else used to treat you like this, and this person that's with you now isn't treating you like that. Are you in a relationship with a woman where she starts doing things that are kind and loving and stuff like that, and you were in a relationship with somebody before that they did those things, but then they would ultimately use it against you when you had a fight, and so you're afraid to open up to this person you're with now because you were in a relationship before with somebody that when you open up to them, they used it to your demise? You see what I'm saying? Like you can be yoked to some things or cause some things to try and bring people to the yoke that don't belong, and sometimes you're bringing people kicking and screaming because these people have already left you. They don't like you no more. They're not blowing up your phone. They're not trying to sleep with you no more. Some of them ain't even trying to take care of your children. But here you are. They're gonna do this. They're gonna be part of this. You know what I'm saying? You have to be willing. So, anyways, we can go down the whole thing with being yoked. But marriage that's why we even do marriage classes. We try to even go deeper into it. We even do marital coaching, life coaching, etc. Because a lot of people are doing things outside of what we should be, and we're bringing things and even yoking things to relationships, even marital advice from people who ain't really trying to be married, let alone people that aren't trying to be married the way we're supposed to be married. You know, marriage is cultural too. Not everybody gets married the same way. And how you doing, French Fire? Not everybody gets married the same way. Real talk. Not every culture considers marriage to be the same thing. So if you're going to be married in this culture, you got to first realize walking down the aisle don't mean nothing because it's not even in the Bible. Some of us have been more geared to walk down the aisle and never learned how to be a wife. But you were taught from when you played with Barbie, or when you dressed up Kid's sister, or when you was messing around acting like your Cabbage Patch was your child, or when you had that doll that you can go ahead and feed and the bottle would look like it was disappearing, and all these things. You were trained to do all this stuff, but nobody ever told you like what being a wife was according to the word. They just got you ready and you walked down the aisle, and then after that, yeah, you were playing house. And a lot of people get older and they playing house. I want that Will and Jada love. You would have never wanted Will and Jada love if you knew what the Bible said. Not trying to get on you, not trying to judge nobody. I'm just keeping it a buck. Like Will and Jada, you saw that coming from a mile away. You saw what was going on. Monique, I'm not trying to talk bad about it. She want to be whatever she want to be, fine. But we're not trying to be married like Monique. Monique is trying to have not just be with men and women. Monique is trying to have an open marriage. If you want one of those, then you should follow that. But that's not what we teach. That's not what we glean from. That's not what we're trying to institute. How you doing, Desiree? How you doing, Patricia? How you doing, Sister Deborah? If I didn't say so already. You see, so this is where Luke chapter 12, verse 51 and Luke chapter 12, verse 53 really stand out for us, because he says, look, I came not to make sure everything was going to be sweet. He said, I came that there was going to be dissension in your family. There was going to be fractions. There were going to be people who are going to learn the truth, and it's going to cause people to not want to be around you. Oh, wait a minute. Sister Nakia? Sister Nakia from Houston? I don't know if anybody contacted you lately. Your name been coming up in our meetings and stuff, especially we had a Texas meeting too. I don't know if I got it to you on Zoom. Okay, praise y'all. Hopefully you and your husband doing well. Yeah, we're gonna be coming through. We're gonna be meeting in Dallas this time. I will be in Houston, but for a wedding. But then in Dallas, we're gonna be in Dallas on the 17th. So you should be getting some messages and stuff soon, if not already. But hopefully you've been doing well. Amen. Amen. How you doing, Sister? I still want to call you my family member's name, Sister Yvette. Sister Yvette. Praise God. All praises to the Most High. Right, but this is stuff that we have to recognize and realize. We have to see what God's doing, and we have to realize a lot of us have the wrong culture. So, anyways, to get back to it now, Luke chapter 12, and I haven't forgotten you, Sister Carla. I haven't forgotten you. Praise God. Luke chapter 12. So once we get to verse 54 and 55, the Messiah says something really interesting. He says, y'all know that if you're dealing with something coming, the wind coming from the east, okay? If the winds, or if there's clouds, coming from the east, he said, you guys know that there's about to be some rain coming. This is for where they were in the world, right? He said, whenever they see where they are, he said, the people where they are, they know that when they see rain clouds coming from the east, he said, you already know that, it's going to rain. He said, and if you guys are looking towards the south, and you guys feel wind coming, then you know there's about to be heat. How you doing, King? So then after that, in Luke chapter 12, this has got to be around verse 57, 56, 57, 56. He says, you guys are hypocrites. You're hypocrites. Hypo means you live underneath. Crite means criteria, right? So hypocrite or hypocrite is somebody who lives underneath the criteria. If you're hyperglycemic, your levels are too high, right? If you're hypoglycemic, your levels are too low. So he says, you guys are hypocrites. Y'all live underneath what you say the criteria is of life. Well, what do you mean? Well, he said clearly, you guys know how natural law works, and you realize it's an indicator of what's coming. How you doing, mindfully Zen? But then he said, when it comes to spiritual law and discerning where you are in time, he said, you guys have no clue. You live under the criteria. You're not paying attention to the standards of Yah. I mean, this is huge for us. We would say maybe you're not listening when it concerns the law or Yashla. Maybe we would say you're not paying attention to what's happening in your own house. We have things that are going on. So much this happens even with me. I have to be careful where you get so busy taking care of everybody else, and you look at in your own family, you say, ooh, I'm neglecting my own house. I can tell you what's coming on with them. I can tell you what's going on with Trump. You can tell me, what's going on with Biden and Biden's neglected grandchild or great grandchild, whatever. You can tell me that Trump did this and did that. You can tell me about Giuliani. You can tell me about all these people that are turning on Trump. You can tell me about being a Republican, Democrat. You can tell me about misogyny and misandry. You can tell me about how you think that this person evil, yada, yada, yada. You can quote scripture at me. But he said, y'all can do all this stuff talking about what's coming. But he said, when it comes to where you are at and what's happening as far as being at war, he says, you're not even in position. You are hypocrites. Some of you are so great at telling women that they have no value and that they need a high value man to give them any value whatsoever, that you haven't even seen the position that we're in to where your women don't feel secure, they don't feel protected, and therefore how can they make sure that even if they try to bow down to you, how are they supposed to be able to bow down to you correctly if they don't feel secure in bowing down? Now, they shouldn't have to bow down to you, period. Or if they do bow down to you, they bow down to you out of respect because they know that you are willing to give up your life for them. How you doing, Sister Brenda? Yeah, mechanic with a raggedy car, or what's the old saying? Never buy diamonds, or never buy a watch from somebody who doesn't wear them. Never buy diamonds for somebody who doesn't have them, right? You are the man, you are the woman who sells the diamonds and never has any. You are the man, you are the woman who has the raggedy car but fixes everybody else's car, right? It says something about your profession. I'm not saying that you can't start off like that, but I'm saying after a while, 20, 30 years in, somebody being a mechanic, unless it's just, something where they're like, I don't need it and my car runs, so I let it look raggedy on the outside, but it still purrs like a kitten on the inside. That's different. But I've seen that, when we go back and forth in between B-more, DC especially, there's a couple of mechanics I know. And one of them, it's always interesting that his car has to be worked on every day just to start, but he fixes 4 or 5 throughout the day. Now, he loves what he does. He's great at what he does. He gets results. But after a while, there's something odd about you fix everybody else's car, but yours never gets fixed. Right? After a while, we got to say something doesn't make sense. You see what I'm saying? After a while, something doesn't make sense. And if I didn't say so earlier, please forgive me. How you doing, Sister Sage? I feel like I might have missed you earlier. I've seen you on for a little bit, off and on. Right? But we have a problem where we become hypocrites. We can see all this other stuff coming, but we don't know that we're at war in the spirit. Yah didn't come that there would be peace. And I said this yesterday, and I mean it, and I stand by it. I'll be 10 toes down again and say this again. You ready? Anybody who wants to tell you that are at war, I'm sorry, that everybody's supposed to be at peace. Everybody's supposed to love each other, and nobody should be left out of anything. And Yah doesn't care what you do, and it doesn't matter who you worship. We're all going to the same place. If you're going to believe that, and if you're going to tell people that, I'm here to tell you, I'm here to remind you, I'm here to let you know that whoever says that has an antichrist spirit, or is dealing with being attached to the antichrist. You know why? Because Christ himself said the opposite. Christ himself said, I did not come that there would be peace. I came that there would be division. Should we have peace with the people that we're on the side of, that are in the legion with us? Yes. But are we supposed to have peace with just everybody? No. Matter of fact, go back and look at Luke 12:51 when he says, suppose. Remember, a supposition means that, lawfully speaking, means that I'm giving you something that might not be outlined in the contract, but it proves what the contract was really about. So even if you doubt what I'm saying is true about the contract, a supposition is when I'm proving that something happened that obviously would affect the contract before it was written. Am I spiritual, or am I a Christian? I'm not a Christian. Am I spiritual? Yes, but am I spiritual meaning what? Because a lot of people just use spiritual and throw spiritual out there. Even in spiritual things, there's laws, there's consequences, there's righteousness, there's evil, there's morality. Right? To a certain extent. Up to a certain extent. I don't care what you call yourself, to a certain extent. But like, for example, let's do it like this. Somebody say, I'm spiritual. And they'll be like, so Buddha said that, and Buddha said everybody can be a Buddha. I'll be like, time out. No, somebody else said Buddha said that, but Buddha didn't say that. How you doing, Nikki Style? Somebody say, what do you mean? That's what somebody said. Study to show yourself approved. Even in the spirituality that you're in, don't just grab something that you like or try to change what Buddha said. Buddha said that he came from an elephant, or he was an elephant, deity, spirit, God, whatever you want to call him. He said he came from another realm. He forgot who he was for a little bit. He came back into knowledge of who he was and all of the forms that he had been through, and coming back over and over and over again in reincarnation. He said, okay, I'm leaving, and this time I'm not coming back. And when he was asked about even spirituality, as far as what happens, or heaven, hell, this and that, he said, I didn't come here to teach you that. I came here to teach you how to be great human beings. So you can't use Buddha to talk about afterlife at all, because Buddha never said he was coming to teach you about that. So even if you're going to be a Buddhist, be honest about Buddhism. If you're going to use Buddha's name, put some Put some respect on his name. You know what I'm saying? How you doing? Stop being lukewarm. How you doing, Sissy? You see what I'm saying? Like put some respect on that man's name, right? If you think that what he did was righteous, then treat him like what he did was righteous. Stop lying on that man. Stop acting like that man said something that he didn't say, right? Or if you're going to be somebody who's Hindu and you just, well, Hindu just have many different, what y'all call gods. Well, Hindus, before they became pantheistic, they were monotheistic. And the elephant spirit for them was everything, which is why Buddha himself tries to pull the elephant thing to say that, hey, that's who I am. So and that's why you read stuff like the Lotus Sutra. People try to, even in USA, they have something called SGI USA, which is like Soka Gokkai USA. Read what they try to do. They try to only use 2 chapters, but if you out of it, they use chapter 2 and like chapter 27 or something like that. But if you read chapter 1, Buddha is basically the God of gods. He's the Lord of lords. He's the beginning of it all. Yes, ma'am, Sister Carla, I got you. Right. So if you're going to use him, you got to use some care. So somebody say, I'm spiritual. Well, whose spirit are you talking about? And are you going to be honest about their spirituality? Or are you just going to say, I want to pick and choose? See, that's what Christianity is. That's why Christianity is something that we should be careful of, not because they're just Christian, not because a lot of them are evangelicals, not because they don't live what they say. Yeah. A lot of people don't do that. There are Muslims that don't live what they say. I've seen Muslims that'll stand there with a prayer cloth in one hand. I've literally seen Muslims stand with a prayer cloth in one hand, under his arm, got a cigarette in his hand, got a bottle of alcohol, all over the place. Now, if he's beginning and he's trying to get better, maybe that's something he's got to work through. But obviously, he's not doing what he's supposed to do just because he would say he's a Muslim. Right? I've seen Muslims in prison who will sit up there and will have these gangs together. They got the gang because they got to protect each other, they got to live, but at the same time, they're obviously doing some things that probably are not things that bring honor to Allah, or even what Muhammad, the prophet, would have asked them to do, peace be upon him. If that's going to be your spirituality, you got to be faithful to it, or you out here playing. Just like we were talking about earlier, a lot of girls think they know what marriage is based off of things they've been doing since they were playing with Barbie or Polly Pocket, or taking care of Kid Sister, taking care of Cabbage Patch Kid, or doing whatever. And then they get to be older and see Ken was an accessory, just like the house was an accessory, and the mansion was an accessory, and the car was an accessory, and the clothes were an accessory, and Ken was just an accessory. So Ken was somebody who just basically Barbie wore. Matter of fact, Barbie's friends usually got more play than Barbie. That's the way that it was put together and manufactured. Matter of fact, go watch the movie, and that's part of the movie. I haven't even seen the movie. I'm talking about people who've seen the movie, men and women who've seen the movie, told me about it. Critics I've seen tell me about it. The scenes that I've seen, that's what it's partially about. It's basically they're supposed to be accessories, right? Then you get married, and now you get married and you start trying to treat somebody like an accessory. And Ken says, wait a minute, time out. I'm sorry to let you know. If you didn't notice this when we were recording, my name's not Ken. And I don't just get treated like an accessory. You said the issue you have with Christianity is the fact that it's a lot of misogyny and racism. Well, once again, so depending on who you're talking about, because I'm not going to paint all Christians with a large brush. Now, I'm not a Christian though, so the problem with Christianity that you should have first is that it's not culturally accurate. I think that should be the first thing, and that's something that we don't miss. And I'm with you, Miss Love, to a certain degree. Misogyny is real, not to a certain degree. Misogyny is real. People mistreating women are real. Men needing to learn how to be better. Women being over sexualized. All those things are real. But the first thing first is that when you're talking about a Christian, you're dealing with somebody who wants to use the Bible, but does not want to actually admit that the Bible is appropriate. And when I say the Bible is appropriate, I mean it's been appropriated. What is the definition of appropriate or appropriate? Appropriate literally is 2 definitions, right? Put them together, they go like this. For it to be appropriate, or to appropriate something, right, as a verb or a noun, it has to first be something that you do that you say is valid, that you say is okay to do. And you say it's okay to do once it's been taken from somebody else to be used by somebody else without the permission of the people who originally put it in place. And if you put the capitalism spin on it, but oftentimes it's going to be for profit, right? Oftentimes it's going to be for profit. So the first problem we should have with Christianity is that we're dealing with it's appropriated. The people. So for example, a Christian wedding looks like a woman in a white dress walking down the aisle, a man in a tuxedo, a priest, or whoever's the facilitator of it, and there's certain things that's supposed to be in place, and you're registering the wedding with the state, especially if you're in the West, registering it with the nation. That's why you get it registered. You're registered. You're getting permission from the state, and you're saying that once we consummate it, because no marriage is valid unless it's consummated. So you're saying once we have sex, then anything that comes out of that sexual union to becoming one belongs to the state. That in and of itself is problematic because it can't belong to the kingdom if it belongs to the state. But we're not even. You see what I'm saying? We're having problems even talking about what marriage is because we're not first going to realize in your Bible you can't find. If you can find it from anybody, can I bet you won't. But if you can find it for me, we'll send you $50. Right now, promise you, right? If you can find in your Bible somebody who wore a white dress, walked down the aisle, this and that. But the problem is we don't even realize that's from a different culture. One of the queens of England, I believe it's Queen Victoria. I believe, I could be wrong, right? She wears the white dress, walks down the aisle. Her train is, by some accounts, maybe even half a mile long behind her. She does this whole huge thing, and the kingdom comes together, and they doing this to marry her kingdom into somebody else's. And they use biblical principles for some of it, but they're not using the culture. So in our minds, we think that that's what a wedding is, and the reality is you'll never find it in the Bible. You said Christianity started in Ethiopia. That sounds great and everything too. Once again, though, Christianity is the mixing of iron and clay. If you're talking about the following of the word of Yah, that didn't start in Ethiopia, although there's more. Ethiopia has kept it longer than just about anybody else. And you also have to be careful which type of Christianity. See, are you talking about followers of the way, which is origin? Are you talking about those who are Cush coming out of Queen Sheba? Right? Are you talking about those who are from King Solomon, who have family who are over there? Are you talking about Christianity that you're talking about that's Eastern Rome, that even though they might not have ever been taken over by any Western group, that mindsets of Eastern Rome did creep in at certain times? If you've ever been over there, right, you might have been, you'll notice that there's many different forms, just like there's many different forms here. So see, we're making a mistake. Once again, when you hear somebody say Ethiopia was all, like you're talking about like Abyssinia, you're talking about Cushitic stuff, you're talking about Nubian things, well, you got to realize even in the story of that and how they get to a place in some of the stories, even about where the Ark of the Covenant is and who it belongs to, you'll discover that a lot of those items that people are discussing are actually things that were changed when there were kings that killed off other kings. Some of them killed them off even in churches and then tried to say the bloodline belonged to them. How you doing, Brother Ali? You see, so once again, we got to figure out what's been appropriate, or what is appropriate, what's been taken without permission, and now we say is valid to use in somebody else's culture and not our own, including what's historical or what we now call historical, because we like his story, or do we like our story or his story, or do we like Yah's story or his story, or do we like the story? But that's why we said a couple parts back in this series, we made it a point to say, look, you be the change that you want to see, but we're going to be the change that Yah wants to see. If it's truth, we're going to stand on it. But if you want to be the change you want to be, see, be that change. If you want to be abortion, be that change. Look, you have every right. Be that change. You have every right. I have no right to stop you, but we have every right to be the change that Yah wants to see too. If you want to be people who, are murderous, even in the way that you use people's names and killing all people's reputations, you need to cancel this and cancel that because you can't have any type of conversation with people and actually talk things through and be honest. Hey, be the change you want to see. I'm not concerned with that over here. I'll speak against negativity when necessary and when led by the Spirit, but it's not my responsibility to make sure that people have to agree with every single thing that I'm saying or doing. That's not what I'm called to. It's just not. It's not what any of us are really called to. If I need to argue things for the sake of the kingdom, I argue things for the sake of the kingdom, especially make sure that those are the kingdom minded don't fall off. But I'm not here to make sure that I walk around. See, I still am an activist to a certain degree, but I was a straight activist for a while, even in my belief system. But I realized that even to be an activist, I had to choose who to be an activist for, because I can't save everybody. That's why there's 8 billion people, so they say, on the planet. If there's 8 billion people on the planet, somebody else gonna have to fight for somebody else. And I'm mad at it. I can't fight everybody's fight. It's physically impossible, no matter what group we have. That's why you have to be careful when you come down on some of these groups and stuff starts happening. Guess what? Like, You got to start looking at the people that are within. The person at the top of the group might not even know that this stuff. They might have a great heart, this and that, or whatever. Or the person who's in charge of the unit, or the person who's part of, this 8-person team, and didn't know that they were in a team where 3 of the people of the 8-person team were doing terrible things towards children. Like you never know. But we got to set up culture. See, that's the one thing that's missing. When you set up culture, you're on point. Anyways, so now let me get back to this real quick. So I'm going to talk about that because if you don't even know the culture where it comes from, then of course people are going to be misogynistic. If you don't know where culture things come from, people are going to be misandrist as well, right? Of course, there's no black women that are worth anything, blah blah, because you come from a culture where you think that black women deserve to be put down. But on the other side, there's no black men that. Well, of course, because you come from a culture where black men are supposed to be put down. To say that there's zero morality in black men or black women, that shows you the culture that you're bowing down to. That's rhetoric. That's not us talking. That's somebody else. That's Massa talking. And Massa ain't got no strings on us, right? You're not Pinocchio anymore. You a real one. Take them strings off, or stop acting like you got them. Because when you keep talking, your nose keep getting bigger. We can tell that you're not saying something ain't right. How you doing? How you doing, MIT Jenny? Okay. Alrighty. So, amen. We're supposed to be peculiar, not fitting. So, verse 57, yea, and why even yourselves judge ye not what is right? Once again, people can't even judge what's right. How you doing, Sister Brea? The verse 58, he says, when thou goest with thine adversary, now this is talking about lawful stuff. When thou go with thine adversary to the magistrate, as thou art in the way, give diligence that thou mayest be delivered from him. Lest he hail thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and the officer cast thee into prison. A lot of people getting imprisoned and stuff because y'all can't even come to agreement. Because you won't even stand up and represent your brother or sister well because you're so much in arguments. That's a real reason why a lot of people just end up in jail, is because we don't even look after each other. Yes, racism. Yes, that's part of it. But it's not the only thing. You better come together with people who's also walking the way with you and stop being the reason why people are getting jacked up. Right? We got to be the change that we want to see and stop being the change that the world has told us. We keep changing for the world. Our children keep changing for the world. It's dangerous. Yeah, capitalism. And when you realize you're the capital, when you realize you're the capital, however you go is how the system goes. But you keep trying to join the system. If you've already joined into the system if you're the capital. Stop being part of the system and stop being the capital. And then you realize that a lot of the stuff that you think is real is not. Right? The stuff that is real, we should make sure that we hold on to. Literally, even the stuff that is real. But the stuff that is reality, we should make sure that we hold on to that as well. Right? When's the last time you seen 2 trees fighting over the forest? Now, there might be weeds and stuff that choke things out or whatever. But ultimately, they have to work in tandem. Even the weed still has to allow the tree to live somewhat. Right? And by the way, let's just make it more humane, just to get to what you're talking about. When's the last time that you've seen 2 white women talking about all white men are trash? Even the ones that talk about them like that, if you've seen it, I bet you they married to white men. When's the last time you've seen 2 Asian women talking about all Asian men are trash? When's the last time you've seen even Korean men that will tell you Korean women are wild and crazy and this and that? When's the last time you've seen that same Korean man not marry a Korean woman? How you doing, Jeanette? Thanks for being on. You haven't seen it, but you see it all the time with your diaspora. Something should stick out to us about that, right? Who's listening is the series we're in, and today is Q&A. But I need you to realize and remember and recognize that you're in a position that you're doing a lot of stuff that doesn't add up. And now to get to Sister Carla, thank you for being patient. If you're still on with us, how you doing, Minister Morel? How you doing, Aaron? Right, and today we're doing Q&A. So thank you for the questions. Keep them coming. And thank you for even the comments. I'll do my best to catch them on all the platforms as much as I can. Those who are coming over from the podcast, we appreciate you. Those who are going to be coming on Facebook pretty soon, we appreciate you as well. Right, but we got to get to this point where we realize and recognize, like, we are allowing people to use us and get us into these weird discussions and fights and all this stuff that don't even belong. They don't even belong. They don't belong to us. Number one, because they were never our discussion in the first place. And number two, they don't belong because what is it even going to do to help us? And is it how Yah sees us? Does Yah see us as people that are, now to get back to what you were talking about, Sister Carla, in anger, right? Does Yah see us as angry? Is that what he wants for us? Can we start there? Let's start there. I don't even know if, thank you, Holy Spirit, because I don't know if I've ever even thought about it that way. But if we would just think about it, we just be honest about it. Does Yah ultimately in his, how he says us running at optimal efficiency is anger supposed to be part of the equation? If we were perfect, does anger ever come into the equation? No, right? So first things first is a lot of times when we're angry. Thank you, Holy Spirit. I literally, this is, thank you, Holy Spirit. I've never thought about it like this, but if you are angry, first and foremost, we should probably check to see, do you see yourself the way Yah sees you? Now, Yah can become angry, but that's because of what? Sin. Where there is no sin, there is no anger. So anger is usually a sin problem. Can we agree? Can we agree? Can we touch and agree just on that, just on the basics before we go any further? Does that make sense? Yeah, shalom is peace. Matter of fact, when you write out shalom, sheen, lamed, mem, you're writing out something that breaks off or destroys anything that causes you to not be guided by the shepherd and be in the water, blood, and spirit correctly. That's what peace is when you write it out. So if we were to agree and touch and agree on something specific, once again, here comes culture, not just us talking, not just us saying Christian versus the blah, blah. Here comes the culture on what's not appropriate or appropriated, but on what actually is real. First things first, if I have an anger issue, I got a sin issue. Anger is the symptom of sin. Now, anger in and of itself is not necessarily a sin, but anger is a symptom of sin, right? If your body is inflamed, the inflammation is not the sin per se, right? But maybe you ate some things that caused inflammation. The sin was eating the thing that caused the inflammation. So I have to deal with first, what is the sin? Now, am I angry? Now we got to have an honest conversation. Am I getting angry because somebody sinned? That would be my first question, Sister Carla. Am I getting angry because somebody sinned? And if somebody has sinned, right? If that's if the answer to that is yes, then the next part I've got to go to is this. If I am angry because somebody has sinned, what is the remedy? What is the boundary, right, for said sin? Right? Now, there can be many times I'm angry and somebody might not have sinned or somebody might not have even meant it the way I take it. This is where empathy comes in. This is where love and empathy and respect and let me hear your side and let me go to our relationship and let me look at love languages and things like that. Those things come into play there. But there could be, right? If we just be honest, the problem might be that um, that there wasn't, that they didn't necessarily sin, or at least they didn't do it on purpose. Now, sometimes people can sin without even knowing. People can sin in ignorance. And so if that's the case, I need to figure out, okay, what do you do? So that might be conversation or that might be relationship, but there also might be people who are, and one of the things that we don't talk about enough, once again, law. Law doesn't give rights. Law does what? Law protects rights. Law doesn't give rights. Law does what? Law protects rights. Law doesn't give rights. Law protects rights. So everybody has the right to do whatever, but law protects rights. You have a right to your peace. You have a right to health. You have a right to tranquility. Do you have law set up in your life so much that people can't keep stepping over boundaries? Oh yeah, be angry and sin not. Right? So anger, like we said, is not necessarily a sin. But when you do something the wrong way because of anger, then Ephesians 4 pops in. And Ephesians 4 pops in before we even get to marriage, by the way. Your marital scriptures that really technically start around Ephesians 5:17, but most people start at Ephesians 5:22, which really you should start at Ephesians 5:21. Ephesians 5:21 is where you start seeing stuff like, hey, both the husband and the wife, right, should both uh, submit one to another as unto Adon, as unto the Lord, right? But we kind of skip over that. We go straight to Ephesians 5:22. Women submit. Ephesians 5:25. Husbands be willing to to sacrifice themselves for their spouse, right? But there is a such thing as anger and righteous indignation. But righteous indignation is based off of somebody that's not in right lawful standing or attempting to do something outside of right lawful legal standing or right lawful standing, excuse me. And therefore now we have set up something to protect it. So yes, but we have to. One of the things that happens with anger is this. Now, if you're saying you're somebody who just deals with anger and frustration a lot, we also have to admit. Now, here's something else we don't deal with: is that there's not only generational curses. So you could be carrying around anger that doesn't even belong to you. You could be carrying around mama's anger, daddy's anger. You could be carrying around great grandmama's anger, right? You could be carrying around all types of stuff. Somebody had something done to them. They never told anybody out loud. They dealt with this anger. They bared you as a child, and when they bared you, they were still dealing with it. And so now you were even born with this into the very fibers of your being, and we're trying to literally take out something, that was sowed into your initial conception, which can be done, but it's a heck of a purifying play. What books do I recommend for somebody going on a spiritual walk? I always say the Bible first, but I would say no matter what book you get, and it depends on what you're talking about. See, spiritual walk, once again, spiritual is this long thing that people try to do whatever. I say first and foremost, learn culture. If you don't learn a culture of something, you're not going to learn the spirituality at all. People act like spirituality comes out of thin air, but everything, even for those, I don't like to say this because it's actually an Aleister Crowley saying, and it doesn't always add up, but people love to say as above, so below, right? Well, if that's what you're going to live by, then you got to figure out what the culture is above. Either way, like that's why only reason why the Bible focuses on Israel as much as it does is because they were supposed to be a family, even though they didn't always do so. They weren't always successful, admittedly, but they were supposed to be a people. We are supposed to be a people who are supposed to uphold this law that was held in high regard by many, including the Father who himself lives by it. So culture is always everything. You said it is not a lot, but there are certain situations that take. Yeah. So, and how you doing, Set Apart? How you doing, Pinky? Everybody who's coming on, we appreciate you today. So when we talk about these things, we want to also make it a point to speak on what is it? What's the word I'm looking for here? Well, we have to. So we have to talk about somewhat of it is generational curses, but also there's nostalgia. We even had a thing that we did here a while ago. Where we called out nostalgic trauma. I don't know if you guys remember. We talked about nostalgic trauma, and I don't know if we coined that phrase or not. All right, but we started off with something called nostalgic trauma, and we were talking about nostalgic trauma from the perspective that there are a lot of people who have trauma, and the trauma is nostalgic, and we think of only nostalgia being positive. So for us, we think, oh, when I smile about it, it must be, nostalgic. But there's a lot of stuff that people carry in nostalgia that does not make them happy. That doesn't give them peace. Right? There's a lot of things that we carry that are not necessarily Yah's will, but we carry them, and we carry them well. We carry them as badges of honor sometimes, right? For example, our diaspora, our diaspora, you know how we roll, especially with getting them whippings and whoopings and all that stuff, right? We love to tell stories about how we got those whoopings, don't we? We love to tell stories about how mama whooped us and mama whooped me, or you think that was something, but my mama whooped me with a extension cord, or you think that was something. Shoot, they called my man frying pan man because he got hit in a frying pan by his mama in the head. Oh, you think this? I mean, we go through these long drawn out things where we compare our oppression, even the oppression of our parents, which they got from that whole Willie Lynch type of mindset. Like we can't wait to tell everybody, the quarter belt, the inch whooping, you know, oh, I had to go out to a switch. Oh, well, we had to braid our switch. Well, you don't know about switches because we use this type of tree. And it's like after a while, it's like we're arguing over the oppression, right? But it's nostalgia, and for an oppressed people, we start using anything we can as nostalgia if we're not careful, right? How you doing? All praise to the Most High. Right. But we love, how you doing, Black Steel, and then we love to compare. We love to tell the generation coming behind us, y'all don't know nothing about this. What y'all know about making sure? What y'all know about going to get a treat? Going to get a whole tree to get whipped with. What you know about getting the whooping when you didn't talk at a child's place? We love to tell them that they ain't nothing because they don't carry the same nostalgic trauma that we carry. We love to break it down for them and let them know you ain't even on my level, son. Baby girl, you ain't even you can't even imagine. Right? But not even realize that we were jacked up. Because even the fact that we still say that we whoop our children should be problematic for us. We should see that that's not our culture. Literally in control and was doing some stuff to us that is wild and has us in a position where we're trying to uphold something as a positive. We're trying to say that whipping is a positive. I mean, think about that. We're trying to say whipping. I didn't say spank it. I didn't say you can't spank your child. I'm saying get into a position where you think you're supposed to whip him. You said your father would punch you in the face. Yeah. I mean, and sorry to hear that, but that's some of the stuff we deal with. And we're trying to use that as a barometer. We're trying to use it as something to tell people that we're better, or that, our children don't know this, or, you don't know nothing about that, boy. We laugh. Girl, you don't know nothing about that. And it's like, they shouldn't know nothing about that. Even when we say stuff like, I only whip you because I love you, that was something that the slave master would have you do. The slave master would have you whip somebody that you loved, and they would laugh at you. The overseer would have you do that. They would laugh at you while you did it, but they would laugh at you, but they would have you do it because it was a way of keeping us in order. And so it's better that you whip them, because the overseer, was going to go overboard. They didn't have any attachment to the slave like that, not like you did. That's your child. That's your baby. So, but the overseer doesn't care about them like that. So the overseer puts it to him. He give them every last piece. Overseer makes sure that they feel every piece of that. Right? But you whip them, but you don't whip them to the same level. You still whip them so that the overseer will be pleased, but you don't. So we have a lot of stuff that we bring up that's nostalgic. So we're carrying a lot of trauma. And one thing that we haven't done, there's a book. Somebody asked about a book that's not necessarily. Well, I think this might have to do something with your spiritual journey, definitely, because your psychology and your spirituality, they locked at the hip, because the word psyche or psyche in the Greek actually literally means the word soul. So if you want to deal with soul ties the spirit to the body. So if you want to deal with soul ties, that's why who your soul is in contact with is extremely important. Soul ties are extremely important. But nevertheless, there's a book by Dr. Joy DeGroy that I mention quite often. Joy, J-O-I, last name, I don't know if I'm saying it right, DeGroy. I hope I'm saying it close. D-E-G-R-U-Y, Dr. Joy DeGroy. And he has a book called PTSS. She has many different speeches on it as well, but PTSS, or post-traumatic slave syndrome. She was going to call it PTSD, post-traumatic slave disorder. She is somebody, by the way, who is a psychologist. That's where her doctorate's in. And she's taught many different psychologists, and she's traveled all around the world. And she's not somebody that believes that only Black people have dealt with PTSS, but even white people, or even people in between, because in order to make racism work, you got to remember that you had to teach white people that didn't agree with this at first. You had to tell them that it was all right. You had to come up with Carl Linnaeus stuff, so that Carl Linnaeus could teach you that white people were on top, red people were next, yellow people were after that, Black people were on the bottom, so that then you can have somebody who's Linnaean in doctrine come behind and give you the theory of evolution, right? There is no Charles Darwin if there's not a Carl Linnaeus. And they had to literally teach people to make, and Charles Darwin, who was a preacher. Remember, most of this was religious. Remember the doctrine of discovery, which says that if you are not a white Christian male on somebody, or if you go somewhere there's no white Christian male on the land there, that you get to say that you discovered the land, even though there's whole people there. People say all the time, how do you do that? That came from the Roman Catholic Church. This is a religion of oppression. And many people were raised by this oppressive religion. I don't care about your religion as far as what it, because I don't care what you call yourself. This is what people think that they mean when they mean religion. The word religion means a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing. Matter of fact, it's a noun as well, right? That ION on it, that GION is kind of like a TION or a CION or a SION, a Sion, right? Religion, whatever, right? Religion, a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing. So some people, it is what they do every day to continue to go to a place of being oppressed, including being angry and where our anger comes from. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? Right? And so it has become people religion. How you doing, Divine Insight? A lot of people are in their religion. Yeah, it is a great book. You are dismissed. A lot of people are into a religion that they've never thought of before, where every day you got to do the same thing. Matter of fact, why do you go into a job and toil? Why do you go toil at this job that you hate to get maybe 60% to 50% of what it is that you're owed, and think that, it's fair that if you're supposed to make 50,000 a year, you're only going to make 25,000. If you make 100,000 a year, you're only going to get 50. If you only make 25,000, you're only going to get 12.5. Why do we think that that's fair? Because you live in an oppressive system, right? And people don't realize that everybody's working for the same system. And just because you might get more what you think are highlights in your day doesn't mean that you're better off than somebody who makes less money than you. Right? Our anger comes from a lot of different things, a lot of different places. So, Sister Joy, I think some of it we probably have to do a one-on-one. Some of, yeah, but and definitely look at the book. But so I think some of it we'd have to do some one-on-one coaching possibly, or some things like that. And I know probably even the stuff that we're doing as far as the Sundays with Minister Lashava or Minister Sharon, that she does on Sundays at 2:00 p.m. Eastern New York time. When life happens, the grief coaching, I know that probably will help some, and it has been helping some as well. But one of the things that we have to take is figure out the nostalgic trauma. What are some things that you carry that no matter what you learn to function in? Right? Like, what are some of the things that you carry that you learned how to function in, and it's nostalgic for you, even if it's not something that brings you peace. It's nostalgic. It comes up. Trauma can be nostalgic as well. Right? Or what are some of the places that you've frozen? Because what happened too, and I don't know if this is your story or if it's anybody's story who's listening to me, but statistics show it's happened to at least a few of you who are watching, whether you're watching or you came up from the podcast, you're on Facebook, you're on TikTok, you're on YouTube. Statistics show that some of you have been SA'd when you were younger or when you were older. And a lot of your life there, you make decisions based off of that trauma. Statistics show that many of you were bullied. Some of you were bullied and decided that you were going to become the biggest, baddest bully, including how you treat women, right? Statistics show, that many of you have something that you feel you should be doing, but you're not allowed to, or that you don't even know how to take time out or how to change your life around to do. So when that happens, whenever you had this trauma, whatever this thing is that happened that was traumatic to you, this is what happens. How you doing, Sister Elians? And how you doing, Sister Casey? This is what happens. Statistics show. When you start dealing in this, well, statistics show that we're dealing with this stuff. When you are dealing with what you're dealing with, this is what's happened in your life. Whatever traumatic happened, if it hasn't been fixed, if whether it's us or somebody else who you trust or whomever, if somebody doesn't start to help you to deal with it, or if you don't get past that situation, you were stuck in that trauma. If somebody SA'd you when you were 5 years old and you never dealt with it, you might be able to live with it. You survive, but you can't thrive. You can't move on to what you're supposed to, right? Why? Because in those situations, right, in this nostalgic trauma, in these situations that's going on, what's going on is namely this, is in all this trauma and all these things that are going on and everything, right? What's going on is let's say it happened to you when you were 5. That means that your 6-year-old self is still dealing with it. Your 7-year-old self is still dealing with it. Your 8-year-old self is still dealing with it. Your 9-year-old self is still dealing with it. Your 10, all the way up, let's say you 55. That means for 50 years, you have been stuck in being S8. You relive it, right? You might not have it at the front of your mind, but it's something that you have not learned how to be delivered from. Many people live through trauma, but never de-live trauma and are never delivered. Did you catch that? Many people live trauma and they live through it, but they never de-live it. They're never delivered from it. Right? To be delivered means that something has to happen to cause you to not live it. I use this is something the Holy Spirit gave me a while ago for a sermon. The 3Ds, right? The 3Ds. David fights Goliath, and and there's 3Ds that take place. First of all, David defeats Goliath, hits him with a sling in the head. Goliath falls down. Matter of fact, it looks at that point like Goliath is off. He's not alive at that point. He's defeated. You would think that'd be enough. David's not satisfied. He then does the second D. He then destroys Goliath. He defeated him already, but he destroys him. He takes Goliath's own sword, comes down, chops off his head. Right? So he's defeated him, which a lot of people do. You'll defeat things, but they still stick around. Some of you might even destroy things, but that's not great enough. Why? Because you got to go to the third D. The third D is then they were delivered. What do I mean by that? Goliath is defeated. He's hit in the head. He falls down. His life is forfeit. I'm sorry, I didn't know that there was going to be all this noise behind me. Hopefully y'all can hear me, and hopefully it doesn't come too much closer. Sorry about that. So I don't know. If so, I might have to try and run into the car. We'll see. But he's defeated. He's destroyed. Then he destroys him, cuts off the head, but then they got to be delivered. So now all of the Philistines who were with Goliath, they see Goliath laid out. And they look up and they get scared because Goliath is the champion. Some versions of the story of Goliath say he might be 7 feet. Some people say he might have been 9 feet. I've heard some stories like he might have been 13 feet. I'm 6'5.5". That means there would have been 2 of me put on top of each other just to make Goliath. If he was 13 feet, that's huge. That's out of control, right? But whatever he was, okay, thank you, Brother Henry. Whatever he was defeated, he was destroyed. But then everybody took off and was a Philistine. Guess what the Israelites then did after they saw David defeated Goliath? Because the Philistines are running because they're like, yo, this little teenager, David's a teenager, he's a boy. This boy took out Goliath. If this boy could do that to Goliath, what can these Israelites do to us? They take off. But if they're not careful, the people who take off will rally themselves. They'll make Goliath their champion. They'll make him a martyr, and they'll come back in Goliath's name, and they'll fight harder the next time than they did the first time. So they chase them and they off them and even take off their foreskins, because if you don't come, because remember David even said, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? They even do that as a sign to be like, hey, anybody coming up against Yah's covenant with us and against the children of Yasharal, they must not ever have a chance to come back, and we're not going to allow them to come back. I know it's gruesome, but it is what it is, but that's what it represented. That's what they did. They chased after him. Once they did that, they were delivered from them. You see, right? To make it to where there's no opportunity for it to come back. And what happens oftentimes with us is that we have learned how to defeat something. So it lays down, it's still in your presence, right? You ever been delivered? You ever like thought you were delivered for something, but you deal with it every day? You still have to think about it every day. Like you've defeated it enough to where it's not hulking over you. It's not a giant like that to where you like, how am I going to deal with this? You had enough faith. You had 5 smooth stones, and you had the grace of Yah. How you doing, Sister Mine? Right, to be able to hit the target, but it's still in your presence, right? And a lot of people, you destroy what it is that you're going through. So you might chop it off to where it looks like it's something, and your problem seems to have run away from you and flee. But just because it flees doesn't mean that it will not strengthen itself and come back and look for an opportunity to when you are weak and that they are stronger to be able to fight the same fight. And for many of us, we have not tried to be delivered. We have not said, like I won't put people's business out there, but I've talked to quite a few of you to where you'll say, hey, I know that I should probably do this to make sure that I finish dealing with these type of people or blah, blah, but I'm not really trying to do that because, when somebody does something to you like this, you probably don't want to be around them. And I've heard men talk like that, women talk like that. I've heard people talk about that with business ventures. Somebody has abused you, has manipulated you, is still around you, still messing you up. And yeah, like basically you're like, I just don't have to fight. But what's going to happen is that person will still be involved in your life every single day because you still have to live your life in accordance to somebody who's not even there. You still have to think about somebody who's not even around, right? Some of us still have situations that we've been done with that situation supposedly 20 years ago, and we're still living like that situation is with us every day, all day. You said you even try counseling, all they want to do is give you medicine, but you don't want. Yeah, because the medicine the medicine is not designed to heal. The medicine is designed to test on you, to be honest, but also the medicine is designed to make sure that when they give you the medicine, it's supposed to kind of just make you numb. So when they numb you, you kind of defeat what's going on, but it doesn't mean what's gone is numbed is gone. It just means it's numb, right? When a woman, which we should not do this at all because we're drugging not only the woman but the baby, we're also messing up her spine and ultimately messing up her uterus and stuff like that. But nevertheless, when a woman has a baby and she goes and she gets something stuck in her spine, this huge needle in her spine, right? And she therefore is not supposed to, the anesthesiologist comes in and makes sure that he or she administers the anesthesia or the anesthesia, however you want to pronounce it. I don't know which one is correct. But when they give it to you, what happens is the baby gets drugged so they actually move less, and your body gets drugged so even though you don't feel as much pain, you also sometimes can't feel enough to push or different things. Sometimes even have to do a C-section. Why? Because just because I numbed the problem, right, or numb the situation where there's less pain, it doesn't mean that there's nothing else left, right? And then so people will give you medicine and people will give you advice to help you to numb stuff sometimes, but I don't want you to numb. You got to learn how to take some of this stuff head on. David defeated the Goliath by taking it head on, and still Goliath was sitting right there, and he destroyed Goliath, took off his head, but the enemy. See, you got to realize it was never Goliath that was the problem. Goliath was the champion of the Philistines. But Goliath, no matter how big he was, Goliath was just one person. If you got 1,000 Israelites, and there were more than that, but let's say you got 1,000 Israelites against one giant, I don't care if he's 13 feet tall. At the end of the day, that giant is not going to win. Right? But they had a thing where they're trying to go champion versus champion. See, the enemy will say, hey, I'm going to give you my best and you give me your best. Right? But the problem was not Goliath. Goliath represented something greater than himself. Just like whatever your issue is that's making you angry, it represents something bigger than just what it is. You're talking about I'm angry. That's what I said earlier. We got to figure out what is the sin. Is there a sin? What kind of sin is it? Is it a lack of love language that's going on? Is it a lack of self-awareness? Is it a lack of self-confidence? Is it blaming yourself? Is it condemning yourself? How you doing, Sister Keita? Like we got to figure out what's going on. Because if we don't figure out what's going on in the frame of thought, we're going to have a problem. How you doing, Leonard? Thanks for being on. How you doing, Gregorio? Thank you for the love. Appreciate you. Everybody on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and those coming up from the podcast. We appreciate you today. Sorry for the noise. Hopefully it's not too much for you guys. Some of you told me it's fine. You could hear. You said, could it be a lack of forgiveness? It could be that you haven't been able to forgive. And by the way, if we talk about forgiveness, real talk, y'all. If we're gonna talk about forgiveness, what is the word forgiveness? What does that mean? We broken that word down before. Anybody remember? How you doing, Michael? When we say to forgive somebody, what are we saying? Yeah, I see you, Sister Christina. Yeah. When we say we're going to forgive somebody, what are we actually saying? Because we don't even look at forgiveness correctly. if we look at forgiveness correctly, a lot of the anger issues that we have are things that we don't think that we can forgive or release or whatever would actually not be as problematic as they become. Right? What does it actually mean to forgive somebody? A lot of people don't know. To give them the freedom to do it again, in a sense, but boundaries should be put up. So I'm not necessarily saying that we should allow, like what it says, turn the other cheek, for example. Turn the other cheek means if somebody's flailing away, let's say somebody's drowning, let's say somebody getting in a fight and they're not trained to fight and they're trying to fight their way out of something, you might cause it to where you can help them to get all their enemies away, or help them, or make sure you break up the fight. And while they're doing all this, they might hit you in the cheek. If they hit you in the cheek, if you're going to stick around and still be around them, you might get hit in the other cheek. You have to make a decision. Are you going to help them? Right? Because hurt people. The people that are flailing in life, they might hit you. Or if somebody's drowning, sometimes, I'm not saying you should do this, but there are some places where they teach you that if somebody's drowning, knock the person out. Because the person, especially if they don't know how to swim and they're just freaking out, they might take you down. So some places they teach you knock the person out and then save them. I don't know if I would go to that extent. But I could see where they get that mindset from. You said you've been taught to be silent since a child, and now you have a hard time communicating as an adult. You just shut down. A lot of people do. Natasha says, are men real providers and protectors? Their experiences prove otherwise. Please help. Well, we can talk about that in a second. Sure, I'm going to get past this anger thing real quick. I promise you, Natasha, I'm going to come right back to you. Great question. You said, I thought I did, but I guess I haven't. You don't know how? Okay. But once again, what does the word forgive mean? See, we're talking about even what forgiveness does, or what we should be prepared for when we forgive. But what is the word forgive? Literally, the word forgive. What does it mean? Not according to modern definition. So maybe that's why we're not catching it. But forgive. To put away mistakes to a certain. There we go, Big Brother Thomas. You wanted to pre-give. To pre-give. Come on, Big Brother Thomas. He got that thing on there. How you doing, Missy? And thank you for the love. Appreciate you. What is my faith based on? My faith is based off of culture. My faith is based off of making sure that I'm culturally accurate, not to something that's been appropriated, but to what people who would have had the proper interpretation would have believed at the same time, and to making sure that I stay faithful to the culture that I'm part of, whether you talk about where I am from West Africa or where I am from Native America, both being people that are married into each other, having the same faith before it was called the Bible. But really more than that, it's based off a relationship with the one who started the culture in the first place, right? What'd you say, MIT Jenny? You said it seems that meds and therapy are getting bad rap out here. You're an advocate of both if used in tandem with prayer and doing what it takes to renew your mind. The meds are never a permanent fix. Just your thoughts. Sure, meds can get a bad rap, but once again, anything that's chemicalized should be something that we look at. Like, so if I give you something that's chemicalized, I'm not against 100%. If, like, for example, somebody gets surgery, of course, or let's say somebody had really bad concussion or something like that, you might need something to make sure that the pain is taken care of, and it might need to be something super concentrated. And if the only thing we can give you that meets that criteria, what you need right away, is something that is chemicalized, for sure. But ultimately, the goal is to make sure that there's certain things that are done, and including even certain habits that are formed. Because so for example, I'm somebody who can speak a little bit on that as well too, right? So I'm somebody who was considered to be at one point clinically depressed. And it was a doctor who taught me eventually when I was struggling on meds, and I'd been given stuff from when I was a child. I had suicidal tendencies. I had a lot of invasive thoughts. I went through a process to where my name was in the gutter, and my family kind of left me hanging out to dry, ended up homeless. Nobody loved me type thing. What am I living for? I'm trying to preach this word, but what is it giving me? Da, 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 da. And I had to go through all that. And there was a doctor that finally sat down with me when I was at a point to where I wouldn't get out of bed. I wouldn't take a shower. I wouldn't do anything. I was on the fourth floor. If you know what the fourth floor of the VA is, that basically some people used to call that back in the day an insane asylum. I had lost it. I checked myself in. I thought I was out the game. I didn't have the fortitude to take my life. At the same time, I was just like, I was waiting for it to end, if I'll be honest with you. And it was a woman who was a doctor. She came to me and she said, hey, look, I'm going to deal with your faith a little bit, but also I'm just going to tell you something that's real. Part of your problem is that you've had a lot of bad things happen to you, and you've been thinking for a while now that things that are bad are going to happen to you. So you got to a point to where you have literally become clinically depressed, which is You have your literally your brain patterns, your emotions, because motion, right? So if I put my hands up in the air and you leave them in the air for a while, be in the sun and stuff like that, at a certain point you're actually going to start smiling. You can't help it because the motion of your hands is the signal to the brain, right? But all of your motions, including the brain motion for me, every time something happened, it was going to be negative because for months and years of my life, it was one thing after another. And nobody else knew about it because one of the things that you do emotionally too is that you stop speaking about it as well. And you don't trust people about it as well. And so I stopped speaking about it. I stopped praying about it, a lot of stuff. And so she taught me, like, hey, Kofi, let's just start dealing with this. Can you get out of bed every day? I don't care about if you even take a shower yet. She was like, I'm be honest with you, you smell. Okay? Because I wouldn't tell you, I mean, I was bad place. She was like, you smell. You don't seem to care about hygiene, nothing. But hey, I don't even care if you take a shower. I don't care if you even come to the group stuff. You're supposed to, but I don't even care about that. I don't even care if you take your medicine, right? Because that's ultimately not going to fix it for you. She said, I need you to start thinking different. She said, so if you get out of bed, I don't even want you to be out of bed all day. Can you get out of bed and can you stand next to the bed for 2 minutes? You're going to want to get right back in bed because you haven't even got out the bed in days. She said, but you won't be, she said, I want you to just get out of bed and can you, even if you stare at the bed, just fight the urge to get in there for 2 minutes, time yourself. And if you leave, and if you're able to stand outside that bed for 2 minutes, when you lay down in it, congratulate yourself and take time out to say, man, I stood out of the bed for the first time in months. Like that's how bad it got. You know what I'm saying? So made a point to say, man, I'm standing up out the bed and rejoice in that. If you don't eat the rest of the day, that's fine. If you don't take a shower, that's fine. And what happened is I did it the first day. And then the second day, I was so excited about it, I went and took a shower. Still went back in the bed, still hadn't cleaned the sheets. So still nasty, but you know what I'm saying? I went there, done that, right? And so eventually over time, so I think even some of that stuff we're talking about medication, that's why once again it's got to become cultural. It's got to become a habit. Like so once I started doing stuff like that, and I've already, even when I was in a depressed place, believe it or not, even without opening the Bible, I still was thinking about the Bible every day. But I was so far gone, cognitive dissonance and decompartmentalizing and stuff had taken its range to where there was no structure at all. So those things happen, right? But the word forgiveness, real quick, and then we'll come to the question that who was it? I can't remember who had it. I'm sorry. Who was it? Atasha, if you're still on, you had the question about are there any good men? We had just talked about it a little bit earlier, but let's get into that, right? But forgiveness, it literally means, as Big Brother Thomas said, it talks about really to pre-give. Forgiveness means before somebody does something, I give them the right to do it. Now, it doesn't mean that I want you to cheat on me, but if I'm going to be honest with you, right? Anybody that I'm in a relationship with, some have crossed the line, some have not. Anybody I'm in a relationship with, they might stay faithful, they might not. I know they will. Now, even if I decide to leave them alone, because according to the Bible, I can divorce them at that point if I like, right? But even if I decide to stay on board, I gave you the right as a human being. I know that you're a human. That could happen. Forgive, right? Even if I move on, I forgive you because forgiveness is not reactionary. Forgiveness is pre-actionary. Forgiveness is not reactive, it is preactive. It is proactive, but it's even preactive, right? If you forbear something, that means before you bear it, right? If you foreknow somebody, the Most High foreknew you. If that means He was intimate with you before something, before you were born, right? So to forgive ultimately is I have to actually be in touch and in tune with making sure I'm in a place to where I live in a culture that allows me, an environment that allows me to let people be human. Now, obviously, I'm talking about extremes. Now, less extreme might be somebody hurts your feelings one day because they're having a bad day. I can forgive that. Somebody has a bad day, makes me look bad. I already know you're a human being. If you're around me, I'm always doing kingdom business. If you have a bad day, it's going to be a bad reflection on me. No problem. I already know that could happen. Matter of fact, forgiving yourself. I got all this pressure and stuff on me worldwide to do stuff for people that are blood or spiritually connected, etc. And I've got to make things happen. When things don't happen and they don't happen the way I want, or the way I expressed, or the way the vision says, people are ready to pounce on you and say, see, you don't know what you're talking about. But I have to, before that happens, I give myself the right to make mistakes. Right now, there's laws to protect me, right? Like, being in the word and repenting and doing certain things and making sure I reestablish vision. There's a lot of laws to protect me when I fall short, but I've given myself the right to fall short. This is why a lot of people don't even like going to a therapist. Oh, thank you, Cam. I appreciate it. This is why a lot of people don't even like going to therapists. How you doing, Brother Keith? A lot of people don't like going to therapists because when you go to a therapist, you have to actually learn to forgive yourself. You have to give yourself the right to, even before you go to the therapist, I have to give myself the right to talk to the therapist, right? Like, you can't release sometimes because you can't forgive. It's hard to release something when you don't even give your right chance self to say, I can express this and not blame myself for every single word that comes out of my mouth. Protect your peace, yeah. So therapists can be right. There are some therapists that want to do right by you. I'm just saying, as far as the training, right? Like, there's a lot of doctors that want to see you healthy. But for example, if you go to and I'm coming right to you after this, Natasha, I promise. This is the last thing, and then we're coming right to your question. Let's say you go to the doctor, you go to the emergency room. Let's say that you have issues with high blood pressure. You go into the emergency room. You're staying in the emergency room. You've been waiting hours and hours and hours to be seen. It is what it is. It's not because they hate you. It's not because of the color of your skin. It's just they got 5,000 people in there, and you were number 5,001. And unfortunately, your situation is not as bad as a bunch of people that might be bleeding out or doing all types of other things that might be more of an emergency, right? How you doing? 10 toes down. So when you get there and you got a problem with diabetes or whatever, this is for educational purposes only, by the way. If you get there and you get with you have an issue with diabetes, or high blood pressure, whatever it is, low blood pressure, sugar levels, etc., glucose, all that, and then all of a sudden you're having an issue with it. Well, you're waiting there a while. Well, what might they offer you? They might offer you, now they shouldn't, but sometimes they do. A lot of places they do. They might offer you um, orange juice, grape juice, apple juice in those little plastic containers with the aluminum foil or aluminum, top, whatever they call those, and or you put a straw through it real hard, and then they'll give you some graham crackers, all of which are going to spike your blood levels. It's concentrated juice on top of that. So they're giving you stuff that's going to spike your blood levels while you're there because of blood levels. So even though it's our pleasure, Carla. So even though the doctor means well, they're in a system that doesn't mean so well, right? Or let's say, like, a lot of people don't even think about this. If you were to go, and I don't know if this is FDA or if this is CDC or this is whatever it is, right? But let's say you look on there for what they prescribe for you as a meal. They say, if you want to make sure if you got blood pressure issues, you should eat this meal. They have that online, right? And you go and you look, you'll find stuff on there like exactly what we just said. Orange juice is usually going to be concentrate if you buy it, because people don't even be paying attention. But orange juice, and by the way, if you buy something that's concentrate, shouldn't you make sure that you water it down? A lot of people don't want to water it down because you're so used to the high sugar levels and stuff like that. Even if it's not high fructose corn syrup, people don't even think about stuff like that. Like, it's concentrated, water that bad boy down. But there's a system, right? You're not taught these things, so you're not taught this already. You go online and say, get the orange juice, get the oatmeal, get the cereal, get this, and it's all stuff that when you put it together, makes your blood levels spike up. Get the bread, right? The same thing, part of a balanced breakfast and all that, because they're working for the corporation. So then you get sent to the doctor. The doctor can't see you, and you're sitting there waiting to give you the high fructose corn syrup and the concentrate stuff, the orange juice, the apple juice, the grape juice, and they give you the graham crackers. Here you are again. Stuff spikes up. Now you got to stay in the hospital. So even if it's not nefarious necessarily, even though it's sinister spiritually what's going on, because everything's controlled in the spirit anyways, right? But even if it's not nefarious or for nefarious reasoning, or if it's not, or even if they have righteous intent, the system, the culture of it is going to determine the outcome. So that's more so what I'm saying. Is like, I agree with you, MIT Jenny, that if we're not careful, we'll act like nothing in modern medicine can be used at all. And that's not necessarily the case at all. Or that we should never have anything injected. Injections, I don't think we should have vaccines injected necessarily, because at least most of the vaccines you take, because they're not natural, and also too, they put viruses in you, and sometimes put dead viruses in you, which, number one, if a virus is dead, which they say a virus is not supposed to be alive anyway, so it's weird that they can give you a dead version of something that they say has no life. But we'll put that to the side. Even with that, you got to be careful what they're putting in you, because if they're putting something in you that's chemical, that's lab oriented, that is manufactured, that is not owned, but is patented. That means that they had to change the origin of it, right? And then they're putting that in there. And the way that the Western theology and Western mindset works is we're going to put something in you that attacks what's attacking you. So this thing is designed to attack what's in your body. But if it's going to attack what's in your body, that's why you get sick. Why? Because it's going to attack your body. Anything that I'm giving you that's going to cause you to be sick, sicker than what you were initially, is not something that y'all really created for us. That's the system that we're dealing with. You know, so that's more so. But he says psychiatrists prescribe meds. A good therapist can help you change your perspective on the world. Sure, a great one can. But remember, even a psychologist is what? That's like the word psychology literally means somebody who's proficient at studying your soul. So always be aware of who the person is. So everybody, seek psychology, seek psychotherapy, seek coaching, seek all types of stuff. Just make sure that you know what you're dealing with. Make sure that you stand strong on certain principles and beliefs, and make sure that you recognize that somebody's entering into your soul, and that you're strong enough to handle that, and that you're open enough, and once again, forgive yourself enough to where you can have honest dialogue and stuff like that. But yeah, you're playing like with me. Those who you're listening to me. That's why I say all the time, study whatever I'm saying. You could be I could be giving you something that's crazy. So you better research it. You better study it to see if it makes sense. Right? Because even when I'm talking, when you guys are opening up to me, I'm dealing with your soul. And your spirit and your body are attached to said soul. So if you're not careful, I can do some stuff too. Or if I'm not in tune, or if I'm having a bad day, even if I'm having a hard time, if I might give you something based off something else. I might see one comment and somehow, some way, take what I was saying to them and put it on you. You got to be in tune. I make mistakes as well. Everybody does. So prayerfully, that helps though overall, right? A great therapist can be a lot of great things for you, and I believe that you should go to a therapist if it's something that you're led to do. And ultimately, for us, that comes down to everything. When we're in tune with Hakodash, the Holy Spirit, she will lead us towards all truth, including if the therapy is true or not. Right? Praise God. So you said, Atasha, your question was about men, right? Are there any men are real providers and protectors? Your experience proves otherwise. Please help. Well, I can see what it is. Matter of fact, I wasn't a great one at one point in my life either. I think I was a great protector, but wasn't a great provider. But I check off those boxes now. One of the things that I think we have to realize is, once again, so that comes to culture, right? And did I say hello, Sister Shima? How you doing? And Army Vet, thanks for being on. Thanks for being part of the community. So when you say, I haven't met any men that are, and this is a cultural conversation. Once again, put that in place, right? Everybody listening on all the platforms, we're always going to talk about culture, right? We always have to start with culture first. Right? So culturally speaking, when somebody says, I can't find a man, and we're talking about relationships, and this is where I might digress some from what your belief system is or whatever, right? Because I have to be in tune with my culture, especially if we're talking about biblically speaking. I have to be in tune with that culture, right? Hello, Kathy. How you doing? How you doing, Miss Q? So in the Bible, there's no such thing. There's two things that we don't do. Premarital sex, because biblically speaking, and even law, sex is marriage, marriage is sex. If you get married to somebody and walk down the aisle and y'all don't have sex for a few months, you can go before the judge and have the marriage annulled, because if you didn't consummate, it didn't count, right? But also, all right, okay, amen, MIT Jenny, have a great day. All right, and then praise y'all for you. And then number one, and then number two, where I'm at. Oh yeah, but then, hold on, sorry, marriage. If I was saying by the Jenny, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, and then number two, so sex before marriage isn't a thing, because in our culture, sex is marriage, marriage is sex, and there's only two people that are qualified for sex or qualified for marriage in our culture, because in our culture, sex or marriage is not in between a child and a child. It's not between an adult and a child. It's not between, obviously, beast or anything like that. That's crazy. It's not between um, it's not between a man and a man. It's not between a woman and a woman. It is not between a man and a woman. It is not even between a man and a wife. It is not even between a woman and her husband. But marriage is between a husband and a wife. In our culture, you must already be pre-qualified to be a husband or a wife, right? And in our culture, here's something else that goes along with this that makes it very confusing for many, because we're trying to use a different ideology, right? Than what the or an ideology versus the idea that the Bible presents. Also, too, not only is premarital sex, if you want to call it that, something that's not allowed, because sex is marriage, marriage is sex, and it's only to be with the person you're going to be with for the rest of your life. But then number two, we don't date. So right there, I might not be able to answer your question the way that you like. I can only give you the cultural perspective, right? I can only tell you culturally what's going on. How you doing, Spaces 118, and Carrie King, if I missed you earlier, right? And then you were healed from all the medication and thinking therapy, psychological, 33 years of it. Amen. Right? So watch this. So if I'm dealing with relationships in our culture, we're taught to be husbands and wives from when we're young. And many people, like, so when a woman says, I can't find a man that's valuable, or I can't find men that are providers and protectors, or protectors and providers, because every woman's number two. I'm glad that you even said those two, because when you look at the 6 basic human needs, if you use that as the paradigm, if you will, or the perspective that we're using to outline this, or the if we're looking at that as the canvas that we shall paint this discussion upon, um, um, what we're having a problem with is people will say, people don't know that a woman's number one and number two need almost 100% of the time. There are obviously exceptions to every rule, but for a woman, her number one and number two need are going to be security and affection, almost every time. She wants to feel secure and affection. She wants somebody who's affectionate, not just to give security, but it gives affection, that knows who she is, that wants to know her love language, that is appreciative of how she rolls, of how she lives, etc. Right? And not only that, right? If we be honest about it, it's not only that perspective only. It also gets to a place to where she is looking for somebody who is going to, um, when we're looking at security, affection, etc. She also, if we're looking at it for the 6 basic human needs, the security and affection comes in a deeper path as well, right? The security and affection comes from a position and a place to where somebody is, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, the security or affection, it comes from a position to where she feels like you have her best interest at heart, no matter what. I'm gonna just start kind of from the beginning ish, if you will. So if you're dealing with a lot of brothers today, a lot of brothers have not even been taught about how to secure something, and they are insecure themselves. And insecure men breed insecure women. And now what's happened is the unprepared man. This, by the way, this is Deuteronomy 28, verses 54, 55, 56, and maybe 57 as well, where it talks about, it calls us tender if we're not careful. The ones who are living with this curse that's coming generation to generation to generation, where they are tender. That word tender means to be unprepared. And and it says that because they are seized on all sides, they're under attack. They basically they can't leave this position they're in. Right now, they could if they followed and were obedient to certain laws and principles, right? But because they don't have them, they don't have the tools, they don't look for those things. What happens is the unprepared man, it says first he looks at his brother sideways. So his issue is not even you at first. His issue is that he covets, or that he even compares himself to his brother. And so now both of us have little, and instead of strengthening ourselves by becoming stronger together and holding each other accountable, we start to be jealous and start to try to even figure out how we can conquer one another. Instead of being more than conquerors, we become conquerors. Instead of becoming people who have kingdom sense, we have become people who have common sense, right? And so now, because of said things, we are now looking at each other sideways. Then the next thing it says is, then we start looking to the woman who is of our bosom, the woman who we embraced at one point and loved us and nurtured us, and we suckled from her bosom and all these different things. Now we've started to look at her and blame her for things. Even a lot of brothers who are in single parent households, and if it's a mother singing, doing a single mother, a lot of times I'll find that the brothers get upset, and I've even seen brothers put their hands on or threaten to attack their own mothers. And they'll say things like, well, you never taught me what it was to be a man. And how could she? It's not her responsibility. But she's in a position where she's doing the best she can. But the boy who's becoming a man really is a boy still in his mind, and he's upset that he has not matured yet, nor does he think sometimes they get to a place where they think they'll never mature. They'll never fully become what the promises of Yah are, and they blame the woman. So now they're looking at you, right? And then it says after that, they begin to even look at their own children, to ignore them, but also if they're around to kind of eat off of them or lord over them, or just use what they have, and not even care if they're destroying their child, to make sure that they have some kind of semblance of manhood. You'll see this a lot. Don't talk to me like that. I'm your father. I'm your grandfather. I'm the man, this and that. And the child is like, but you don't teach me anything. You're not here. Well, I go to work. I provide the bills, but there's no affection, right? It's security and affection. And I've said this before. I'll say it again. And prayerfully, this doesn't turn any of the hopefully this doesn't turn any of our sisters off, or even our brothers off. But prayerfully, you'll hear my heart in this, and you'll hear the words. Like, I got to remind you guys, like, turn off the super emotion real quick, because some of you will get emotional to the point to where you won't actually listen to what I'm saying. So I'll say it 3 times, realizing that might make some of you upset and more upset and more upset. But for those who have ears to hear what Ravak has to say. Okay? And how you doing, WIT? Right? And ism born, if I didn't say so already. Watch this. There is not one wife or one woman even that wants to have to go to work. I'm gonna repeat it again, because somebody in their mind, oh, you saying that a woman can't work and she can't make money? I didn't say any of that. Oh, hey, Proverbs 31 woman, get your business in order. I'm gonna say it a second time though. Let me say it again. See, this is stuff when we're talking about. See, we're not dealing with culture. We're not looking for the men of Yah or the husbands who are already qualified. We're just looking for men, right? Let me say this again. A real brother knows, right? It doesn't mean she can't make more money, this and that, but you need to at least have her back. Why? Because a real brother knows that there's not one wife, there's not one woman who wants to have. That's the key word that qualifies it, right? There's not a woman, not a sister that wants to have a job. You see the difference? I didn't say she can't have a job. I didn't say she can't have a business. I didn't say she can't preach, she can't talk. I'm gonna say it a third time just to make sure we're clear. Okay? I didn't say that the woman can't make money. I didn't say she shouldn't make money. I didn't say that if your husband's in a position where he can't make what he needs to, that you shouldn't multiply, right? That you shouldn't be somebody who is a helpmeet, right? But hear what I'm saying. There is not a woman on the planet, right, ever been created that wants to have a job. Matter of fact, she doesn't mind being the one to have the job if she knows you have her back. My wife used to make way more money than me when we first started in husband and wife and being together. And I was trying and I couldn't get a job and stuff like that. But she told me, hey, I got you. I see greatness. Matter of fact, she said, you keep putting in stuff and you're more qualified than people who are working for me that are making like $250,000 a year. She said, Kofi, you go ahead, and she said, you need to develop yourself and get SOC really going the way that y'all said. You told me that's what you're supposed to be, you're supposed to be a Levite. But she said at some point, she said, I need to know you have my back, because if something happens financially and I can't take care of us, I just need to know you have my back. If that's the case, I'll go back to working, and I don't even care if you do anything, because I know you protect and I know you make sure we're secure on basic necessities and stuff, but get yourself in order. She gave me, that was real conversation we had. I'm not even shy about talking about that, right? And I felt some kind of way even getting with her because she was well off. She didn't need me for financial assistance, but it doesn't mean she didn't want that. She didn't crave that from her husband. That's something that every woman would like to know, is that bare minimum, my husband got my back. If I got to make 100% of the income, at least he got my back. But and guess what happened? Slowly things started taking place. I was doing side hustles. I was painting houses. I was playing music at every gig I could get. I was playing music at all the churches. I was doing whatever I could. And sure enough, I was getting better and better and better. All of a sudden, right before COVID, scares started happening, as far as she wasn't going to work this many weeks. And all of a sudden COVID happened. Everybody's working from home, but then all of a sudden they had to, cut they all the companies started cutting, how much they were paying and how therefore job positions had to go. And all of a sudden, she was getting tired of stuff anyway. She just was like, I'm gonna take a break. But she could see that I was in a position now to where even if I didn't make as much money as she had, our lifestyle was still intact, and that she would be able to still do things she was doing. Matter of fact, do things somewhat better than what she was doing before. And so now, because by the way, security for a woman is not just money only. That's one of the things that we need to get in our head. We only think about finances, but see, sisters need security too. Like, hey, will you take the trash out every day? Can you mow the lawn? Do I know that the gutters will be clean? Do I know that if somebody tries to put their hands on me, you'll be there? Security is more than just finances. Yes, finances are important, but when your wife says she wants to feel secure, she's not only talking about money, right? Even if you can't do what she does financially, can you put your pride aside and make her a sandwich? Make sure that there's security there. If she's gonna be the one stepping up anyways, she doesn't mind doing it. But if she's gonna help you to multiply, at least you could do is humble yourself. I was talking with Minister Tamara. Some of you might have been there when we had the Minister Tamara on a Friday a couple weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, and she was asking questions about something having to do men and women, and where do people get the scripture from that women aren't supposed to do anything but just be in the kitchen and blah blah and all that stuff. And I said, well, I don't know, but I said, to be honest, I'm not that type of brother. And that's when I said earlier, Sister Matasha, I was saying that culture is going to be extremely important in this conversation, because for real, like when my wife and I got together, I actually like doing dishes and I actually like doing laundry. So I never really worried about, matter of fact, I like folding clothes because I came from the military, and in the military, they teach you to fold your clothes in a specific manner so that you can basically fit everything in a little foot locker that you need to wear for boot camp. So I still fold all my clothes the same way. So, and I even feel in a couple of ways I've even improved possibly on what they taught us. So I like doing my own laundry just because I don't have to worry about certain things being out of order. I like knowing exactly where my stuff is. So I like doing laundry. I like doing, at one point I was cooking more than she was. She was cooking a lot. I was cooking a lot, and I started cooking more. But she was the one that was, had more on her plate as far as outside responsibilities of the house. But that's what a husband does. And she felt secure. She still wanted more help financially to come along. And I developed those things, and she gave me an opportunity to get SOC to grow and things like that. But you said, can do a video showing us how to fold clothes and stuff. People have asked for that a couple of times. Maybe one day, I don't know. Like, I guess I have to find a way to be able to sneak a message in there. right. But maybe, I don't know, maybe like there's like 4 or 5 people who've asked me, like, can you show us how to fold the clothes and stuff and do some of the stuff like that, or how you do this, blah blah. I don't know if that's necessarily something you got to learn from me, but whatever. I guess we could do that one day. Not laughing at you, not coming at you. I'm just saying it's interesting. People have been asking me that question. I'm like, people want to learn how to fold clothes, military fold. Okay, I guess. But even with my wife, here's something else, because I love, like, watch this, and this shows, like, because I love folding clothes, and I literally love, like, I could fold. It sounds weird. I could fold clothes. Sometimes when I talk to some of you guys on the phone, I've told you we'll be talking and stuff. Oh, hey, how you doing, Pastor? I'm like, yeah, I'm just right here. I'm folding clothes. So my wife and I work well. Like, my wife doesn't mind putting the stuff in the wash and dry, but she's not really cool with folding clothes. And before we even laid down with each other, whatever, one of the things I helped her out with, to make sure that she knew that I was there for her. We weren't dating or anything, but every once in a while she might need help with something, or she was busy, or she was doing different things. And so at the time I was still, coming out of some of the street life and stuff, as far as being on the street and stuff like that, and get myself together. And so I might do her laundry. I might take a couple hours out of my day, do her laundry, but and have it folded. And she folded her stuff in a different way. I folded her clothes at first, and she was like, I don't like the way you fold clothes, blah blah. And I was like, okay, well, teach me how you do yours. And I saw how she put her stuff together, and I said, oh, okay. And I learned her way, and I improved that because I like folding. And then when she got back, she'd get back. I wouldn't be there when she got back, but when she got back, her clothes were done. Least I could do. You see what I'm saying? Like, these are things, and I would be careful too. Some of you, depending on where you are in lust and stuff like that, if you can't handle that, please don't be in a position where you're gonna lay down with your, the person you're betrothed to too early. I probably, in all honesty, maybe shouldn't have been doing that, if I just be honest with you. And if that's a bad example, I apologize for the bad example. I'm just being honest with you. But those are things that I really like. So for me, I've never been that person to be like, she got to do this and she got to bow down and blah, blah, especially if I'm not even in a position to hold, my weight. You said you like mowing the lawn and not really doing the dishes. Yeah. So yeah, but you find somebody who's compatible. That's part of it too. And one of the things that we don't talk about as well. So once again, though, a lot of people are looking for men, and you should look for a husband. Husband is a different level than man. A lot of people are looking for women, and you should be looking for wives. Wives is a different level than woman. Women are to be respected and uplifted, but wives are a whole nother level. And wives are supposed to be respected to a point to where we recognize that everybody's wife is only for one husband. Your wife is not supposed to, your wife is not my wife. Right? Matter of fact, if I'm your wife's pastor, really, honestly, I have to make sure I'm in tune with what you do. Because in a sense, I guess I used to say this the wrong way. I used to say, I don't pastor wives. I only pastor their husbands. That's not true necessarily, but hopefully you get the context, right? So I repent from saying it that way. But what I mean when I say it that way is that if I pastor the wife, that means that her husband has to be given respect by everybody, including me. So I'm never the person to be like, he a bad husband, leave him, because they ain't got nothing to do with me. That's your husband, right? That's your husband. I wish a mother would tell my wife to just up and leave and not know what's going on and not have talked to me first or whatever. I wish somebody would. I wish somebody in this assembly would tell somebody else to leave their husband without knowing what the husband's side is or whatever first. Now, if a husband put his hands on you doing something like that, hey, get out the house. But I wish somebody would be like, just straight up divorce somebody and you ain't even talked to the other person or this and that or whatever. That person has to make that decision for themselves. And when they make that decision for themselves, that's between them and your hubba. You hear what I'm saying? That's between them and the Most High. I don't have nothing to do with that. That's between them and your hubba. I don't have nothing to do with it. I can't even say, well, I can give you tools, but ultimately the decision is theirs, right? I can just give the tools. But what I'm saying is like, so going back to the thing when you talk about, and I get it. So nowadays it's hard to find a great man, let alone a husband, let alone a great husband. But we don't recognize that husbands should be formed before they find you. Now, watch this. One of the things that you as a woman might be doing that might be the wrong way to look at it, right? I'm just, be led by the Spirit, take the meat, spit out the bones. If the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't, take it off. I might be wrong. But what I'm sensing is by some of the word uses that you're using, you might do what a lot of our sisters do, which is you're looking for a man. You say, man, I would say you should, if anything, look for a husband, but you're looking for a man, looking for a husband. The way it works in our culture is the husband's going to be in his work already. He's been trained on what a wife is, what a father is, what a mother is, what a husband is, all these things already from birth. So when he finds you, it's a different conversation. Did you catch that? When he finds you is a different conversation. He who finds a wife, he's supposed to be in his work already. Before a woman existed, before a wife existed, before Chavach, or who we call Eve nowadays, before she existed, Adam already had a work. See, and a lot of sisters, you looking for jobs and credit scores? No, look for his work. Look for a mission, because you're going to be in submission, not submansion, but submission. See, don't submit to a man who has no mission. Submit to a mission that has a man attached. Because if you love the mission, you'll love the vessel, right? If I'm going to drink, watch this. If I love Kool-Aid, then I'm going to love the cup the Kool-Aid comes in. If I love Kool-Aid and somebody gives it to me, right? I'm not just going to sit up there and be like, I'm going to drink it, but try to like scoop it up with my hands out the cup. I've got to use the vessel it comes with. And I know some people say, oh, well, here you are, that's being detached from somebody. No, it's not. That's reality. Because there's going to be times that I might not like the color red, But if the blue, if the blue flavor, y'all know how we do. We ain't call them the actual, because they weren't real anyways. But we don't call it by its name. We call it by the color, right? So if I like, give me the blue, give me the blue Kool-Aid, give me the blue flavor, right? Even if it comes in a red cup, if I want the blue flavor bad enough, I'm gonna have to drink it out the red cup. And eventually I'll get used to drinking out the red as long as I get the blue flavor. You know what I'm saying? The same thing. We're so worried about the vessel, not realizing that if the vessel holds something valuable, that we should want the vessel because of what it holds. Some people will pay thousands of dollars to be able to say, look at this vessel that I have that holds flowers. But the reality is that the only reason the vessel is worthy of having is because it holds the flowers. You should be looking at what can that person hold. Is there teaching moments even when doing the chores around that house? Amen. Right? You hear what I'm saying? You said you like dipping pickles in the Kool-Aid. I never heard that one. Don't know how it tastes. I'm not going to judge you. I don't know how it tastes. Right? Don't tell me you got that when you was pregnant. I feel like a pregnancy thing. I'm just joking with you. I hope that's not offensive. I don't know if it is or isn't. I don't know why I even said that. Anyways, but you hear what I'm saying? Like people like the vessels for some reason and never think about what goes in the vessel or what's in the vessel. People like whitewashed tombs that are nice on the outside, but are filled with decrepit, disgusting bodies on the inside. If you have a man without a mission, that's a dangerous man. Heck, if you hold flowers in your hand, don't you know your hand becomes a vessel? But when you get flowers, normally you want to put the flowers in something. You find something to put the flowers in. Sometimes you'll even buy something to put the flowers in. But even if all you have is a cup, you're thankful to have the cup because it holds the flowers. So you catch what I'm saying? Like sisters, when you're looking for, or when you're looking for a husband, this and that or whatever, you're not supposed to look for them. They're supposed to find you. And when they find you, they're supposed to come ready as the vessel that holds the flowers. And you get to inspect the flowers. How do they smell? What are the colors? Are they my favorites? Did you take time out to know what my favorite is? All that, right? Like all this stuff goes into flowers. Matter of fact, sometimes you like flowers. My wife is a herbalist, right? We were out, you guys have seen this. We've been out in the desert and stuff where we did the live session yesterday. I took Bailey out, the dog. I took Bailey out for a walk, and she went with me. And I went out there and I saw stuff and I didn't know what it was. But one of them looked like something I'd seen her talk about before. The other one, it looked like mullein to me. So I was just like, I don't know what these are. Hopefully I'm not grabbing something that's about to hurt me. But I also know my wife's teaching enough to where if I grab these, it'd probably be something. And sure enough, not only was she intrigued by the smell and everything, but also she was like, I told her she was looking at one of them, the smaller one that I got. And I was like, yeah, I got that one because it looks like, it reminds me of mullein. And she goes, sure enough. And then she takes a picture on the phone. She has this app where she can look up things. And then she studies it. Sure enough, guess what it's called? It was called something mullein. All right. And I don't know herbalism like she does. I don't know herbs like she does, or herbs if you do. I pronounce H's on words. So, so I don't know because, it's not really the shepherd, but it's the shepherd. He's it's the sheep herd, shepherd. So, but anyways, I like to pronounce H's on my words. So forgive me. But I'm not as much of a herbalist as she is at all. I'm not a herbalist. She's the herbalist. However, I've been around her long enough and seen her excited about things long enough and had her tell me things over and over and over again long enough to guess what? I showed her affection, and also it shows security. Why does it show security? Because in her mind, she goes, if he's paying attention to stuff and he's not even a herbalist, he just so happened to be walking the dog and he thought about my affection and my security on that level as far as getting something that might be healthy for the family. What else might he be thinking about on a higher level? When he makes a decision here, is he thinking about something where he saw something a long time? You see what I'm saying? You want somebody who's already has a mission, and part of their mission should be to make sure that they are taking care of you. Right? Part of the mission should be, I already take care of you. I've been trained to do that since I was a child. I told you, my son, y'all ain't gonna be able to play with them, that little boy. He 8 years old. This boy already, he opened up doors. He speaks different languages. He pumps gas, so his mother doesn't ever have to pump gas, whether his daddy's with her or not. You know what I'm saying? Like he makes sure that if he, even when he's doing kung fu, and sometimes he does kung fu in person with people, and when he does kung fu in person, if he has to fight girls, he's not like a lot of little boys that have to be restrained and stuff like that, or go too hard, whatever. He knows, hey, this is a girl, I gotta respect her. Matter of fact, a lot of times he don't want to fight. I'm telling you, that little boy, when he becomes a man, he's in training already. When he becomes a man at 16, when he knows what it is and is trained to be a husband by age 19, when he knows what it is to be a father and given his inheritance at 22, and when he's carrying on his father's business, and when it's time for him to find a wife, or whoever that wife is, when he submits his resume, she's not gonna know what to do, because she's gonna be used to dealing with a lot of foolishness. Heck, you never know. He might get betrothed before he becomes an adult anyway. Just saying, that's part of our culture too, which people don't want to talk about that. But if you have a mother and father there in the word and the spirit, then why not make sure that you start training your child up with somebody else who's doing the same thing to be on. See, this is part of, and I know this is something where I'm not saying you have to do it this way. I'm not saying if you don't do this, this isn't righteous. I'm just hear what I'm saying, because I know that we're in the land of our captivity, so we got to operate different sometimes, right? But hear what I'm saying. I know a lot of you went through your dating stuff, and that's how you got together, and sometimes it worked out for the righteousness, because y'all can work out all things together for righteousness, for tabah, right? Hear this though. If your child and my child, right? One would have to be a boy, one had to be a girl, obviously, for us in our culture. But if your child and my child are both being trained in the way, they both being trained to be husband and wife. They're both being, I see you, Sister Monica. They're both being trained in the way. They're both learning the word of God. They're both being faithful to what the word says, right? Both of them. Both of them. Why wouldn't we want them to start being trained for the other child as soon as possible? So you got the wrong thing. In your mind, you're like, I should find somebody and then we can be adults and then we'll learn what it is to be husband and wife together. No. If both of them are being trained to be husband and wife from when they yay high, why would we not make sure that they get together? And then see, can I tell you, I already feel it. I feel it. Somebody's flesh just moved. You know what somebody just did in their mind? Somebody just said, I felt it. Somebody just went, well, that's manipulating. You're not giving them a chance to have free will. Look. May I say something? That's how it used to be done. That's usually always be done, right? Goes back to being yoked. And you yoke them when they're young. By the way, you miss it, right? Matthew 24 and John 14 go together. Matthew 24 is the woman the virgins that are sitting there, they have the oil in their lamp. That's because the woman, once the knocking ceremony was done, I've talked about that before, where the families have come together and agreed on terms, and the father has or the son of the father will, so the groom or the father of the groom will pay a dowry, because she has value. She's the weaker vessel. The word weak means more precious. So you're already going to pay into the family because of the value she has, to show that you're serious about how your family is going to make sure they shape everything to include her in their family from this point on, and make sure that this beautiful gift that's not going to be around in her father's house all the time somebody will be given something for her, right? But then also too, you would use so she would prepare herself for her husband at that point. And a sign of it was that she was supposed to have oil in her lamp, and it was always supposed to be fresh oil. Right. So that meant that she was always thinking about, and she was always being taught by her mother and father, and she was getting word, whether she was around the person she was going to marry or not, she was getting word. This is what he likes. These are the things that he does. This is what his business is. This is how he feels about blah, blah, blah. And she was preparing herself. While meanwhile, he was going to prepare a place in John 14 for her, a mansion. A mansion is not what you think it is. You think a mansion is a big house, but a mansion is actually an add-on to a house. So if you ever get to go to Amish country somewhere, let's say you go to Lancaster in Pennsylvania, and you go to Amish country and you're able to take a tour, I would suggest you take a full tour and actually pay to go on the bus. I don't know if they still do it now, but we had done it. We've been up there a few times, and when you go up there, and by the way, the food is like banging up there too. Like, I don't know what it is. Amish people, especially for certain foods that they be putting out there, that's not all for me. But the ones that they have, food be off the chain. Anyways, I don't know why that came out of my mouth, but I promise you, like they be doing their thing. All right. Anyways, though, when you go up there, you'll see like all types of great stuff. They're great craftsmen. We got like trains that they made in wood and stuff like that that had Solomon's name spelled out. I mean, it's for lack of a better word, it's dope, right? But anyways, you go over there and you'll travel around and you see these houses, but then you see these weird parts of the houses that are like completely different colors, and you go, "What's that?" And the tour guide will tell you, "Oh yeah, that's a mansion." You go, "Oh, that's what they call a man. The whole house is a man." No, no, no. She'll go, "No, no, no. That part right there, that's a mansion. That's an add-on. They add that on, right, to the place, and it's added on because the son is supposed to start building a place for his wife, and no man knows the day nor the hour except the Father. That's a spiritual and a biblical and a marital principle, where the son is supposed to be building a place for his wife to come and stay attached to his father's house. Now the son already has his own property and has already continued his father's business. He's already making money, but when they come together, they're going to stay at the father's house, and the father and the father's family are going to be the ones primarily responsible for helping them to get on their feet as a young couple. They're not supposed to move on their own, right? This is culture showing up, but it's hard to describe it to many people and talk about marriage. See, these are things that are there. So you have people that are supposed to be ready, betrothed, sometimes even betrothed when they're younger. You already have a son that's been preparing himself for this one girl who turns into a woman, that turns into his wife, or turns into a wife and then becomes his wife, right? And then you have this this wife who has been preparing herself for this boy who has become, a man who's become a husband and has prepared a place for her. And then eventually he comes back and does another knocking ceremony. This is when Yehoshua is standing outside of the assemblies, right? And he says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock." That means that there are people who say that they are part of the kingdom of heaven, and still they are not actually partakers in it at all. They swear up and down that they are what Yah wants them to be, but they're not even married to him, or they're not even betrothed to him, or they might be betrothed, but they're not ready for him to come back. They don't have the oil in their lamp. He's saying there, "Behold, I stand at the door, and I'm waiting for you to be ready to come in." See, so even betrothal for us is different, but a lot of people just go betrothal. How you gonna know? How you gonna know how the cow is if you've never had any milk and stuff like that? I don't need milk from a cow to know what a cow is. I don't need milk from a cow to comprehend the value of a cow. And by the way, I'm not marrying a cow. My wife is not a heifer. She's a whole wife. She's a whole woman, right? She's a whole girl, eternally, all three in one. But I don't have to lay down and make sure. I don't have to see how freaky she is. Look, what you do in the bedroom is undefiled. And by the way, a lot of y'all wouldn't know what freakiness is had you not been freaks outside of the kingdom anyways, right? I'm not saying everybody was out here messing around, but let's be honest, a lot of us wouldn't know what your favorite position and all this stuff is unless you were figuring out with your spouse anyways, which is what it's supposed to be. I'm not saying your relationship's supposed to be boring. Whatever style you want to go into anything from missionary to doggy style to froggy style, right? You want to use multiple orifices. You want to do whatever. That's on you. The bedroom is undefiled. That's not any of my business, right? But what I will tell you is that the weird thing is that you're carrying a lot of stuff. Once again, we talked about you're attaching other people to the yoke, right? You're carrying other things and other positions and other people in, and you're trying to make it work. That's why some of your relationships become hard, to where you're trying to be like, okay, I'm gonna be pure, but you haven't purified yourself because you still have a relationship tie. So you get with somebody else who doesn't do that position, or somebody else who doesn't do that with their mouth, somebody else whose tongue doesn't move that fast. Can we be real? Can we be adult for a second, right? It's just for educational purposes only. Sometimes we got to talk like this, though, because this is why people's relationships have issues. Y'all be talking about the money and stuff like that. Some of y'all haven't talked about stuff as simple as, before you get married, what kind of sexual activity are you into? I mean, that's a huge part. I'm forsaking all others for the rest of my life. If I'm coming in and these are the sexual desires that I have, we might want to put that on the table and at least figure out, is there going to be some compromise? Or how often can we do that? Or if we can't do that at all, but you do this instead. That you might need to have a real conversation about that. Because if not, that's why y'all be lusting after other things, because you came in with a lust issue, right? Matter of fact, let's be honest. Some of y'all know you married somebody with a lust issue. And you knew when you married them, they wanted it breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm not talking about the food on the table. I'm talking about what they wanted in the bedroom. They wanted at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. All of a sudden, you got with that person, and now here you are. Sometimes doing something as simple, whether male or female. Sometimes you're dropping in testosterone, right? And as you dropping in testosterone, right? By the way, just a little aside, I don't know how many people know this, but do you know that women actually have more testosterone than men? Were you aware of that? I don't know how many of you are aware of that. I was 3 days ago years old when I found that out. Something like that. 3, 4 days ago, I found that out. I did not know that. But because now testosterone is still dominant for men, meaning that we're supposed to have more testosterone than we have estrogen, and even estrogen is a little iffy because estrogen can sometimes just be considered to be waste, and a lot of people have fake estrogen or false estrogen because of what you're eating. So estrogen is blah blah, but women actually carry more testosterone, but they still have what's dominant in them is progesterone, and if you want to say estrogen as well. Some people even believe estrogen's a myth. A lot of Afrocentric herbalists will tell you that estrogen is kind of a myth. It's not real. It's more waste than anything else, but it's waste that helps. So it's kind of like you still need to see how much of it because it's still a great indicator in a woman and a man, like where they are in their hormone levels. Right. And I'm not going to act like I have all the science to give you everything on it. I have a little bit of it, though, to at least get you started. But yeah, so in women, we know that progesterone, especially in your cycle, is more important than estrogen levels, anyways. Right. But women have more testosterone than men do. So when you hear even all this stuff, this is why you got to be careful who you're listening to. You'll hear sisters out there, well, men out here and toxic masculinity and testosterone and blah, blah. No, 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 no. Sisters, you have more testosterone than we do. Testosterone is just you carry more hormones than we do. And that would make sense, by the way, because you actually have to give life. Like we give you the seed, but you have to grow the herb. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you should have more. And what happens, a lot of women, by the way, a lot of women, they get older, and a lot of us say, well, why are that when women, a lot of people don't realize, men don't know what they're doing until they get older, but then their testosterone drops down. Women kind of sort of don't know what they're doing too, but you're not supposed to, unfortunately, because we don't think about women's needs. We don't think that women need to learn how to do anything other than just kind of be a punching bag in the bedroom. So that's kind of how you treat them. And even though that's not the case, right? But when women get older, it's actually women should have a really high sexual desire, not just because she wants to be this net. Well, partially because she's going to have children too. It's natural, but also she has more testosterone in her. Now, men, when we lose testosterone, we have less to start off with. So when we lose testosterone, it's a problem, a big problem. But women, when you go from age 20 to 40, from age 20, I believe, to 40 years old, you will have lost 50% of the testosterone that you carry. So that's when you have some of these issues where people be not feeling like they're in the mood. They say they're not in the mood. So that's actually you're having an issue because nobody's told you that you have more testosterone than what you think, and you need to be eating things to keep your testosterone levels up high as well. Men have way less estrogen than women do, and that's why we shouldn't have things that have a lot of estrogen in them or give you more estrogen, even give you false levels. Like men should not really be eating soy like that, right? Because it messes with your estrogen levels. It makes them spike, or even or men shouldn't be drinking out of plastic. Women shouldn't either, but men definitely shouldn't be drinking out of plastic or eating from plastic stuff that often, or heating things up in plastic because it gives you false estrogen levels, which makes you start getting wonky and stuff. That's why we got to be careful. Even if I be honest, I don't have an extreme example of it, but it's tough for me even to get. I've had to get off of certain diets because it was getting tough for me. I'm pretty strong, right? But it was tough for me to ever get like chiseled because a lot of stuff that we eat, including sometimes fruit, believe it or not, fruit and vegetables, you have to be careful too. But usually it's going to be the protein or the meats that we get protein from. Usually they're shooting it up with so many hormones that a lot of men now, they have this thing where they look like they have, even if it's a small version of it, you look like you have a breast rather than your chest being firm. I don't mind putting my stuff out there because I know a lot of brothers don't want to admit that. But yeah, I'm still aware of it. Like it's better than what it used to be. But and I never was like really droopy or anything like that, like looking like I had breasts. But that happens to a lot of guys. Matter of fact, you have to be careful. A lot of guys, they don't think about estrogen when they do this. But when you take steroids, a lot of guys, they get I won't use the word, but they get something called B tits, BITC. You know what? Tits. That's what they call it when they use testosterone, or I'm sorry, steroids. And a lot of times they're using steroids that has a lot of estrogen with it. So they end up developing breast because you're dealing with their hormones. As a matter of fact, if you ever were into WWE or wrestling, if you know about Dwayne The Rock Johnson, he's known as The Rock in the WWF, to turn into WWE at the time, there was a time where he would wrestle, but he wouldn't wrestle without a shirt on, right? There was like his usual wrestling attire was going to be when he had on these, underwear basically, because that's what they'd be wrestling in. But he had this time where he started wrestling in his sweatpants, and he had like a sweatshirt or something like that. It was because he developed what they call that word B tits. He developed a woman's breast. That's what they call it if you work out in the gym and stuff like that. They call it that because they see it so much. Now I don't like to use that word because I don't think we should say that our women are female dolls, but that's what they call it, right? If you ever hear that term B tits, they're talking about a guy who's developed breast, or at least something that looks like breast, because he's taking estrogen. Even if it's steroids, he's taking estrogen. You can see it in UFC fighters too. Right, exactly. Or even sometimes you see it when people have that little thing that starts like separating. A lot of times you'll see women who work out, that happens, and men who happen where you see their chest, their breasts literally start separating. They got like this really weird thing where it's like they got their tone, but their tone is like out here rather than, it looks like the Hulk or something. It looks like somebody cut the Hulk, split it up, and then sewed it up, like put some skin in there and then sewed it up where like his muscles are spread apart. Right. You'll see that a lot. And people who are working out, you can tell people are taking stuff they're not supposed to take, or they have things in them, or they're eating things they shouldn't be eating. Right. But you see it. You are what you eat. You can't help it. If you're going to eat stuff that is estrogen or leads to estrogen levels spiking, or is going to be progesterone given, you're going to see it. So The Rock, he had to wear that shirt, and he because he had developed something where it looked like he had breasts, and then on top of that, then he had to go get surgery. So he actually literally had to have breast reduction surgery. So when you see The Rock nowadays and chiseled up and everything, there was a time to where all that stuff was hanging like breast. And how you doing? My wife is on, the Honorable Maya. Please check her out on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. What you call? Oh, okay, Jim. Oh, gynomastia. Okay, I didn't know that's what it was called. Gynomastia. Okay, there you go. Gynomastia. Thank you for that. So he had gynomastia. A lot of guys do. Matter of fact, you'll see guys that are weightlifters that still try to do competitions, and their stuff is getting borderline to where it's starting to protrude, right? So you can tell a lot of times, but you have to be careful in what you're eating. And like I said, my wife is the herbalist, so she's on if she needs to correct me on something. Or of course, babe, as always, if you have something to add to what I'm saying, especially as far as from a herbalist place, feel free to. I know you're just getting your day started, so I don't want to put all that on you. But if you're able to help, please feel free to. How you doing, LaCrystal? Thanks for being on. So, but these are things we're not aware of. And by the way, tonight is supposed to be herbalism class. A lot of our classes this week, because of Signal, we've had to do recordings on. So hopefully we'll be able to have it. We'll keep you guys aware of what's going on. So if we have to do a recording for that, we will. And if I have to do a makeup for that, I might do a little makeup for you guys, or do something that's just for y'all. So please forgive us once again if we have to do that for you. I've had a lot of Signal issues, including even just being able to use finances and stuff last night. It was crazy. But anyways, we praise Yah, that Yah is always with us. He never leaves us nor forsakes us. And we're thankful and grateful unto him for today. But yeah, so these are great questions. I'm sorry, somebody had asked me a question earlier. I don't even remember what it was now. It was on TikTok. Somebody asked me a question, and I was like, okay, we're going to get to it. And somehow, some way, I'm talking about the body now. But anyways, so I was just saying all that to say, like, women need to know that they actually have more testosterone than men do. Now, estrogen and progesterone are still, and once again, estrogen, some people will argue, is it an actual hormone, or is it waste? Is it real? There's actually people who will tell you like what they consider to be estrogen, what they've taught us about estrogen at least should be looked at over and over again now, and definitely redeemed as far as what we're considering it to be. But yeah, we be careful when you hear people say, oh yeah, blah blah blah. Like, you got to comprehend. So if you have a woman, watch this. If you're a man who doesn't have, or let me say it like this: if you're a woman dealing with testosterone levels, right? If you're a woman who's dealing with testosterone levels, if somebody's coming, you can come on. What's going on? But if you're a woman dealing with stuff where they're saying, "Oh, she's aggressive, this and that, or whatever," and they're saying, "Oh, like she's too much like a man, her testosterone levels are too high," not necessarily. As long as her testosterone levels are not out of pocket and they're definitely not going higher than her estrogen and I don't even know what that looks like if you see a woman that has higher testosterone levels. I guess we've seen it before with women who look like men, like who have been in the Olympics and stuff, and they try to use that against them to not perform or to not be in the Olympics. But um, a woman should have high testosterone. Matter of fact, here's something that they don't teach you about testosterone. They tell us all the time that testosterone is, yeah, they tell us all the time that testosterone is something that makes you aggressive, and you can use it in aggression, during aggression, stuff like that. But testosterone doesn't just make you aggressive. Testosterone, matter of fact, if I have a healthy amount of testosterone, testosterone helps me to be at peace. If I watch a football game, and I don't really watch them that much anymore. I'm gonna start watching it with my son now. But if I watch football, basketball, baseball, soccer, whatever, I get into it and I have an experience. The reason why you would want your husband to do that and be part of that is because you want them to feel what they're feeling. They actually have their testosterone levels move just because they saw it. Well, yeah, whatever balance is, right? And balance can be different for everybody. That word balance, I'm always careful with it because imbalance is usually better, usually proper. Like, for example, people say, have be balanced in your relationship. It's like, I don't want to be righteous on Monday and the evil on Tuesday, But I get what people mean when they use that term. We kind of just use that term loosely. I think we should be careful sometimes because sometimes imbalance is great. I don't want to be balanced in estrogen. And so I do want imbalance, right? I want my estrogen level to be lower and I want my testosterone level to be higher. Now, once again, just for educational purposes only, I'm not a herbalist. I'm not a doctor. I'm just telling you some things you can look up for yourself. Anything outside of what you can look up for yourself, or at least what I'm aware of, you can look up and find that what I'm saying is true. I can't bring it to the conversation. Right, but testosterone is something that helps you as far as like with testosterone is what helps you with being in the mood sexually, especially for a man, right? If a man, by the way, that's why I mentioned make sure that they're hydrated. Hydration and even eating things that cause you to have healthy blood flow. Those are things that are going to help you, that are going to deal with your testosterone as well. So if you're having a man that has a hard time, for lack of a better word, getting it up, becoming hard, becoming attracted enough that he would get to a place where he can ejaculate. You'll find that a lot of times that just has to do with not just straight testosterone, but also like he's not hydrated enough. His blood doesn't flow well, right? So if you get him, or he might not even be digesting things, so he might be eating things for it, but he can't digest well enough. So there's a lot of different things that you could be doing, and even sometimes people don't even comprehend like color-coded stuff. Now I'm getting more into like class stuff and things like that, but even color-coded stuff, for example, um, you know if you eat things that are red or reddish, a lot of times it's going to have something to do with blood flow. If you're eating things that are greenish, that you're going to be, or green or greenish, you're getting iron. If you're eating things that are, what is it? I think yellow has to do with, I might, let me be careful on that. I don't know if I have that one correct, right? But you kind of get the gist of what I'm saying, right? So this is stuff that like you want to kind of get into. They've taught you for a long time. Matter of fact, the reason why I brought it up one time, we were going to talk about this not too long ago. The reason why I even got into that was that there's a guy, you might know him. If you don't know him, you've probably seen his work or seen things that he's done or seen his face even and not known it. His name is James Cameron. So that's why I say culture is important in all this stuff we talk about, right? Culture is extremely important. So James Cameron came out and made a statement. I don't know how long ago this was. I just found out about it recently. But James Cameron comes out with a statement. He says, hey, you know what? Testosterone is evil, and men need to purge it from their bodies because of the whole Me Too stuff and because of, making sure that we comprehend that we are we should make sure that we are in tune with our feminine energy and spirit and all that stuff. Which, by the way, I'm not saying you shouldn't be in tune with femininity at all, but just saying that's the culture that it came from is something different than what it is for us and what we think about, right? So when we hear this going on, when we see this going on, what James Cameron is saying, he was saying that testosterone needs to be purged from your body. But if testosterone is what makes men evil, then why doesn't it make women evil? Especially if they have more testosterone in their bodies than men do. But see, that's why I say the culture is extremely important, right? So when go into marriage and stuff, and people talking about the woman is now watch this. Here's something that people don't think about as well. Black women carry more testosterone than not just men, because women carry more testosterone than men, but Black women are going to carry more testosterone than their other women counterparts. So somebody says women are just aggressive, blah, blah. She might have more testosterone, but also if you give her security and affection, that testosterone is going to be used to help you to multiply. It'll actually help her to calm down. It'll actually to work out a little more different. It'll cause certain things to go to them hips that you like so much a little better, or to those curves a little better, right? But she would have more of it. So the thing that you don't like about her is actually something that's a natural occurrence, and actually is going to cause your child to be healthier as well. If she's healthy, take care of her and take care of what you consider to be bad by their standards, so that you can actually have something healthy within yours. Right? Like, our women are going to be more creative. Not trying to make fun of anybody. I'm not saying that nobody can be creative. I'm saying on just statistically speaking, they're going to be more creative. Why? Because they have more melanin. Melanin not only gets you darker, it doesn't always make you darker, by the way, but melanin is not only going to make you darker, melanin is also going to be something that's going to cause you to think different. And if she's going to think different, then she might question you different. Be strong enough to handle the questions that come your way. You say he's a movie director. Yeah, he doesn't understand the human body or science. He makes up sci-fi. You do what he says, and sci-fi will happen. Yeah, very true. I'm just saying that's where people are going. But that was the first place that I heard that, where it was like somebody was saying how crazy that was because women had more testosterone. I was like, oh, so James Cameron down here. This is the same James Cameron that wants to teach you about love, Titanic, wants to teach you about history, Titanic, wants to teach you about how to treat people with respect and do the rainforest, right? Avatar, same person that has, that has you. Did James Cameron do The Abyss, or did he work on The Abyss? Or did what's his face that did Aliens do The Abyss? I don't know. I think James Cameron did The Abyss. I might be wrong on that. But all these different things and everything he's trying to tie into to tell you how to make the world better. By the way, the same James Cameron that for fun goes down in submarines, and has gone down deeper than everybody else and makes billions and billions and billions of dollars, but wants to tell you how to feed everybody else. But once again, will try to tell you something that's not culturally relevant. It will tell you something that will off your people, telling you that you should get rid of the masculinity. Now, here's something that's interesting, though. I bet you I want to see James Cameron's diet, because I bet you he's not eating things that get rid of his testosterone levels. I bet you he comprehends that he needs testosterone, and that he needs to take charge of things, and that he needs to make sure he takes care of his family. It is James Cameron. Thank you. Okay. I thought so. I don't even remember The Abyss. I just remember basically that the girl almost died, and then he went deep and he had to breathe in that stuff, which I thought was real because I saw it in the movie where he was breathing in the liquid and stuff, and he was able to go deeper or whatever. And then he got saved by the alien, and then the alien thing comes up at the end. I remember like pieces of it. I don't remember the beginning of it. But long story short, this James Cameron, who's trying to tell you how to heal the world and living as a billionaire and won't feed the world, is the same James Cameron that's telling you to make sure that you take testosterone out. You got to be careful. Matter of fact, do you guys know that the term toxic femininity did not come from a woman? Now, somebody says, who cares who it came from? It's true. You got to know the context. Toxic femininity, or I'm sorry, not femininity, toxic masculinity, excuse me, did not come from a woman. It came from a man. Now, toxic masculinity. They're two words that don't go together, right? If somebody's masculine, they can't be toxic. Matter of fact, if I eat something toxic, it will start offing me according to my dealing with my masculine ways. If it's toxic to me, it will off my masculinity, right? But nevertheless, toxic masculinity is something that was two white men who were trying to develop something because they felt like people of color, especially us and our diaspora, were too masculine. That's where the term comes from. How you doing, Minister Tamara? Right. And by the way, this makes sense because Gloria Steinem, who is like the godmother or the mother of the feminist movement in America. Now, there's other mothers of it in different places, but she's supposed to be the mother of it. I think she's supposed to be the main mother, but whatever, the feminist movement. She's a CIA operative, admitted it to y'all. She was married, a CIA operative, telling y'all, and even got a woman when our sisters got in place. She hired a 16-year-old, got the CIA to pay her. She got a 16-year-old that had been spurned by a man and was really upset. She got her to write a book in her season of being upset and told black women that all black men are worse than white men and that black men are just as accountable to white supremacy and that therefore to women being oppressed all over the place. That's why when you hear that stuff, we don't even think, where did it come from? We just think, because once again, we think that we're totally independent, rather realizing that we have interdependent thought. There's no such thing as independent thought. Stop letting people tell you there's independent thought. This is when you get tripped up. You got to figure out where your thoughts came from. How do you know where your thoughts came from if your thoughts are independent of anything? If your thoughts are independent of anything or anyone, then it means they're independent of any direction. How can you know the direction of thought or the direction of thoughts or the direction in which thoughts are coming from, and you are independent of thought? Who truly here has been raised in a vacuum? Nobody taught you how to speak. Nobody taught you how to sign. Nobody taught you how to look. Nobody taught you what makeup was. Nobody taught you how to, what the levels of that was considered to be whatever. You just did everything by yourself. That's the problem. Some of y'all be trying to do that with preaching and teaching and stuff too. I'm independent. You better be interdependent on y'all. You better be interdependent on this culture. But they were trying to teach this stuff. But Gloria Steinem and them did that. The CIA put that together. Then two white men came together with the CIA and said, let's start telling people that if they're masculine, they're toxic. That didn't come from us. That didn't come from women. See, that's the main thing. If it came from you sisters, I would actually be like, okay, let's even if I disagree with it, let's have further conversation. But it's hard to converse when sisters that don't even realize that you're so busy saying you need to be anti-male establishment, not realizing that the people who you're speaking, or the language you're speaking as far as anti-male establishment, came from males. It was males. Feminism is a male, is something that works for the powerful men. And if you don't catch that, you won't realize it, right? Just like this whole red pill movement, that works for powerful men. They always talk about powerful men, but have you not realized in all this stuff, whether it be Andrew Tatum, Fresh and Fits, I forget the name of the guy who was trying to tell everybody to get their young boys to start snipping their stuff, and so they couldn't have children, but then try to get it reversed before it was too late, so they could be focused and they could go ahead. Which doesn't mean they'll be focused; it just means they'll have a bunch of sex without children. But they were like, you won't have responsibility of a child, so you'll get further. But it's like, yeah, but then you won't have discipline to make sure that you keep it in your pants either. But whatever, all these different people that are out there. Sneeko, I think is the name of one of them out there doing crazy stuff. Who else? I can see this other person, but I can't remember his name. But anyways, all these people who are coming out, the vasectomy, right? Yeah, and telling young boys to get vasectomies, and mothers, by the way, are talking about they're gonna get their boys vasectomy. And you don't realize those are male. That's male propaganda. And when they talk about being a high value man, have you ever watched their shows and realized that these high value men get men to pay $100, $200, $1,000 just to get their comments on their YouTube channel, or to comment on whatever they're using as their social media outlet, and they get them to put their comments out there, and these men are paying all this money to supposedly be taught how to have multiple wives by guys that can't even get a wife, and are paying for women to sleep with them, paying for prostitutes, or are becoming pimps and pimping the women and prostituting women themselves, right? Like, people don't even recognize that all that stuff it's the same rich men at the top, and sometimes the same rich women at the top. Don't miss it, right? But it's mostly men. I'll give you that. Listen, 95% of them got to be men, right? But there's families out here who are doing it. So you can't just address it as men only. But nevertheless, it's these billionaires, and a lot of the ones that aren't listed, that are the ones that are controlling, what's done. And I don't think people realize. See, this is why the Bible keeps it real with us. It tells us stuff like the poor will be with you always. Why does it say the poor will be with you always? Because you got to recognize that there will be people who make less than you always. So if you happen to be one of those people who are the always who make less, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up because of it. Don't be upset. Don't be frustrated. Don't be mad. Don't be angry. Matter of fact, if we build this community, right? If you're somebody that doesn't have, you'll always have. And when we give, then make sure you sow what we give. Because we're not just going to take care of your needs where you eat, but eventually we're going to start taking care of your wants, to where we'll take care of what you need to eat and make sure that you don't have to worry about eating again. See, that's the goal, right? But that's culture. Salah. That's when culture pops up. And we don't want to have proper cultural conversation. That's the issue that we're having. Sorry, you said question on the husband topic. When you were talking about how he prepares himself and what he should be looking. No, well, okay, yeah. I was talking more so what the wife should be looking for in the vessel, but I mean husband should be looking for something in the vessel as well. Okay. You said I really want to know, how do we get past the physical attraction if it's not there, but he has all the qualities of a great husband? Isn't that important also? Yeah, for sure. Now, once again, now this is about being raised. That's a great question. How do I get past physical attraction? You should be physically attracted to whoever you're with, but I'm here to tell you, I'm married to the most beautiful woman on the planet. So I know this is like trying to listen to somebody who doesn't deal with this problem. I don't even know if it will be a problem anyways, but I love my wife deeper than just, even though she's the greatest woman looks wise on the planet, as far as I'm concerned, nobody can tell me any different. Meanwhile, I love my wife for more than just how she looks. But also too, that's a cultural thing. And those of us who have been raised in it, we got to figure out ways to purify and to get these things better. Right. But there are things that we should look at. So for example, to go along with what you, to hopefully answer your question, or at least answer it somewhat. I don't know if I'll fully answer it or not. And we got to get ready too, because Sister Judith has to come on at 12 on her TikTok channel. Once again, she's going to be on Judith Lewis 56. So feel free to join us there. But in a little bit. But you got to realize and recognize where we're talking about the looks and physical attraction. What happens is that we've been raised to believe that only certain people or only certain dimensions are physically attractive. Right? So that's part of the problem that we have too, is that a lot of people have been raised to believe that only certain things are physically attractive. Right? So if you were to go, so for example, if you were to go to Africa, there's a lot of people that over here you would think aren't physically attractive. And over there, they're not only looking at your face and stuff like that. They're not only looking. Now, I'm not saying somebody should be slovenly, somebody should be out of pocket, somebody should be out of breath, somebody should always be unhealthy. But even those things aren't necessarily the case. But you go over to Africa, like for example, in Africa, I've talked about this before. You go over there and you try to bring makeup with you to give to the sisters as a gift. And the sisters sometimes and they're, very, very beautiful for where they are and stuff like that, and just beautiful in general. But you go over there and you're thinking, okay, we're gonna give them some makeup. They're like, I've never used it. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's not. I'm not saying nobody who is Kemetic has never used makeup. Nobody in Africa has never used anything on their face. No culture do. But see, it's like a cultural issue. To each culture, there should be a beauty standard, and our beauty standard doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be only Coke bottle frame. Right? Like our beauty standard does not have to only be, our beauty standard doesn't have to be only one type of skin color. Right. Our beauty standard doesn't have to be gums look pink or gums look black. In like South Sudan and Ethiopia, Kush people, stuff like that, they don't even have, like, their beauty standard is that your gums should be black, and they want your skin to be dark black. But it doesn't mean that they should shun you if you're not as dark as they are, right? And when we say black over there, they mean like jet black. They mean like blacker than, like, as black as the tints of Kedar. Look up the tints of Kedar. That's what they're talking about over there, right? But at the same time, they also have a culture. They have certain standards. So there's things that should be attractive, right? There's things that should be attractive outside of just the way one looks. So, there should be something, once again, like, they look to see what would a guy do, or what is he even saying, or how does he protect? How does he hunt? Like, it's different cultures wherever you go. Somebody might be looking at, some of them, they're very big on faith. So how is your faith? Some of them, how do you take care of your goats? Right? Like, there's a cultural aspect. And so attraction, if we're not careful, physical attraction is, of course, something, but you'll find, especially when we get it more correct and we start getting back into culture, we'll stop leaning as much to the physical only. Is physical important? Sure. But, when we all get older, certain things are going to happen to all of our bodies anyways. And so we might not be as attractive in the physical sense, but there's still going to be something that binds us together. And those are the things that ultimately we want to look towards. So and look, can I be honest? There's a lot of people who are physically attractive, and people still who are in relationships with them and don't want to have sex with them because they treat them like garbage. You can have a six pack and still have your wife be like, no, like, I'm tired of being treated like crap, and not lay down with you, because that might have even got you to the dance. It might have got you in the door, but it's not going to be what keeps it. You said there are so many disrespectful older songs that say get an ugly woman, she'll be faithful. But if men aren't attracted to their women, they usually cheat, and vice versa. It depends on where you're coming from. Once again, I don't know who the men are. So are there men that cheat because of different reasons? Yes. Are there women that cheat because of different reasons? Yes. I'm the type of person, if I hang around somebody who I think is cheating, I stop hanging around them, and usually I tell them. As bad as that might sound to some of you, I'll usually tell somebody, because I'm not going to have my name attached to some dude who's doing that, especially for what I do now. But I'm not going to have my wife being like, why are you hanging around so-and-so? Like, I've had guys that I've been around who my family's had mad love for, and still do, who I can't hang around them. Well, I'm just not able to hang around them anymore, to be honest. But, they out there, they're being flirtatious, things like that. And I would tell them, and then I tell my wife, like, yo, I was talking to so-and-so. I told him he needs to stop doing that, because I don't even want to be around. I don't want to be associated with it. So once again, it comes to a cultural thing. Like, a lot of you find that there's a lot of men that don't get just like there are women that are awesome that don't get played. There are a lot of brothers that are awesome. There's a lot of men that are awesome and they don't get played. You know what I'm saying? I was just talking with my wife about this the other day. When I was coming up in school, I always thought of myself as the least attractive, most nerdy, couldn't talk to anybody, very much so an introvert. Still am, by the way. People don't believe me till they meet me in person. But unless I have something that I feel is like righteous to say, or unless I see somebody is like feeling kind of ostracized or separate from the conversation, I need to get them in the conversation. I just kind of be quiet, right? So I didn't really approach people. I would find out after the fact that there might have been a girl that was attracted to me or something like that. And, but she would tell me after she was no longer attracted to me, blah, blah, But there's a lot of us that are told like things that we're into are not necessarily attractive. And so a lot of guys kind of are like, okay, I guess, I'm not, and we don't focus on it. If we find somebody that wants to be with us, that's great. It's something that we yearn for. But there's a lot of guys that kind of in a situation where they feel like a lot of women where, hey, some women feel like no guy feels like they're worthy. Some women feel like there's no guy that's worthy of them. A lot of guys don't even have that problem as far as, is there a woman worthy of them? We should. But a lot of guys, believe it or not, they kind of, and it's something they got to get out of being. A lot of guys are just kind of like first come, first serve. If somebody shows interest, they're just like, okay. Because a lot of guys don't get played, believe it or not. Yeah, are there guys out there that are and it's personality. Are there guys out there who I'll see fail 25 times, but on time number 26, he happens to get this great woman, and maybe he was only looking to lay down with somebody, but he'll try 26 times in the night. On time number 26, he got his woman, and he goes to his room. There are men like that. Are there a lot of men that go to the club and they just kind of sit on the wall? Y'all seen them. I only been to the club like once or twice in my entire life. Well, no, maybe like 3, 4 times my entire life, right? But you see them at the club and they sitting on the edge of the wall and they just holding the drink, and they really awkward because they're there, and they're like, I guess if somebody, but they don't even know how to approach. They haven't been taught to approach. They don't even have the courage to approach. Just show me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. Amen. Yeah. So my friends, I don't hang out with people who are no problem, Brandon. So I honestly, I don't. If I find out somebody's cheating or looking like that or doing that, I got to call you out, and I try to do so in private first. But then eventually, I gotta. That's what y'all call them, wallflowers. I guess that's what you call me. I think every time I went, I ended up being a wallflower. One time I tried to get on the floor and I danced with somebody or whatever, and it was kind of odd. It was awkward because I was like, "Who is this person?" And the person, they backing the thing up or whatever, and I was like, "I don't even know who this is." And I just went back to the wall and stood there, right? So, I'm just saying, like, it's we have to start looking for those things. And what's happened is the only qualification a lot of people look for is the physical. They hope that they find somebody who has the other qualifications come with the physical, right? So they hope that they actually find other people who come with the physical, or other qualifications come with that physical. So what happens is, like, a lot of guys, they don't be like, "Oh, I was attracted to you because you were a wife, because I saw that you did this, because I saw you took care of your mama, because I saw that you were somebody who was faithful in the assembly." Because a lot of guys, they like, "Oh, I saw them hips. I saw them hips swaying. I had to walk up and be like, yo, shorty, what's up? What's good?" Right? That's how a lot of guys start. If you in an assembly, if you in a church, if you in a camp, whatever, a lot of y'all started with, y'all saw her walking, you saw her walk, you saw her body, right? And if you did have the ability to be able to approach her, you approach her. If she approached you and you was like, "Oh man," and I'm using the words y'all use nowadays, I don't even think we should use these words, but y'all be like, "Oh man, I'm a wife her, she a baddie, blah blah, she wifey, da, da, da." That's what y'all did, but you didn't get that based off of what she actually was value in here. You saw what she was out here, right? Because whether you're looking at her from the side or whether you're looking at her from the front, you looking for you were in the natural law only. And I'm not mad at it, but you was in the natural only. But very few men are like, "Yo, let's actually deal with where you coming from. Let's deal with, what are your hurts, what are your needs. I want to secure you. I want you to feel better when you're around me. I want you to love yourself because you're with me. I want you to realize that you've never been loved like this before. I want to love you so deeply that they can't pull this love up because it's rooted too deep." Like, that's not how a lot of brothers are thinking. And a lot of sisters, if we be honest, you're not thinking the same either. He cute. He make this much money. He willing, matter of fact, sometimes it's, how much will he bow down? And I'm not saying that you should bow down in reverse. I'm just saying sometimes it's, will he bow down? Will he just show up? Right? Will he just be there at my feet? Shall he make sure that he makes me feel great, and feels all these great things and things of that nature? Right? Like, that's what a lot of us are looking for. We're not looking for what's actually going to last, and only what you do for Yah will last. And so, yes, the physical things are great, but I'm here to tell you, at least on the brother side. Now, sisters, you would have to direct me on this. I will not touch this on the sisters. Y'all can put in the chat, or maybe my wife want to tell me one day, and then I'll entertain saying something, because I only go off of what I know to be true, and I can't act like I know this for a sister. So I can only speak for the brothers. I promise you that for every sister out here, no matter what men say out of their mouth, if you are willing, just about, there are some men, but once again, this is men versus husbands. Men that be talking all this trash, and even some husbands, for real, men that talk all this trash, Men that talk all this trash as far as they're gonna do this, do that, and men that talk all this trash as far as like what they're gonna give, or men that talk all this trash as far as I lost TikTok for a second, sorry. But men be talking all this trash. And men be saying, yeah, I would only sleep with this person, blah, blah, this and that, whatever, right? But I'm gonna just give you a secret. Men who talk all this trash, I wouldn't sleep with her. Look at her, she ain't got nobody. Look at her face, she ugly in the face. Look at blah, blah. Those are the same men that be sleeping with them same sisters. Just straight up. Straight up. You know, like men talking about, I don't mess with no fat girls. And by the way, what is your definition of fat? You know what I'm saying? But anyways, right? I don't mess with fat girl, blah, blah, this and that or whatever. Those brothers, they sleep with women that are considered to be overweight. I'm not going to lay down with no girl. She ain't got no body. She too skinny. Let a skinny girl say that they can come get it. They'll get it. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be careful in those things. You have to be careful in that mindset. There are a lot of brothers and a lot of men that say that they will not tolerate something, and then they will look for that if it makes themselves available, because it is what it is. That's what it is. Like, so you have to be careful with that. When men say that, and I don't know how that works with sisters. If sisters will say, I would never, I've seen sisters say I would never, and then somehow, some way they got with the person they would never, you know, and that ends up being the one that they married to, and now they've been married for 50 years. So I don't know how that works. right. You know, I know in my profession, there's women or there's men who are married to women who, and the women said that they would never marry a preacher, and here they are 30 years later, you know. So it's the same way. Y'all say, okay. So when you hear people say that, don't entertain that. Like if a guy's doing that or whatever, especially if like for real, put it like this. You know, I'm married, so I can't speak to that perspective anymore, right? I've been off the market, so to speak, for a while, and I don't look on the market because I've got the greatest wife who ever existed. If before her, and it's a long time ago, I got to think now because I don't live in that vein anymore. But if I wasn't interested in somebody, I've never once been rude about it. And I'm not all that, so I know, like I said, I didn't get approached that much. But if I got approached or somebody said they like me or something like that, and I just wasn't interested, I usually just didn't say anything. You know what I'm saying? So if you run into somebody that's running their mouth or something like that, usually there's people who's being really defensive because they try to throw you off the scent, or something weird is going on. But I promise you, like, that's something that you don't ever have to worry about. But that's, once again, it's culture. You know, it's culture. Like, and even if it's not as physical with women, there's other stuff. Once again, we learn from other people's culture. Like women be looking for stuff like credit scores. Credit score doesn't mean he ain't gonna smack you in the mouth. You know, I mean, get a man with a credit score, I guess. But I mean, a man or a woman that has a credit score doesn't mean they're going to treat you with respect. Right? Like we have to look deeper than just the mundane, and the superficial, and the surface level things. You can't go visit, you know, to bring up the Titanic again. You can't visit the Titanic and think you're going to use scuba gear. Scuba gear gets you deeper than most, but you're still only going to go so far. You know, no matter what your credit score. And by the way, if you got a man that's on a mission and has a proper vision, guess what? He might not even need credit. Like I'm thinking about now getting the credit card. I don't have no credit card, but I don't need one for the lifestyle that I live. My wife and my family are still taken care of, though. Correct? You said you resubmitted the DS-11 and checked correct box, sent documents, and still received the wrong pen. Did you take Isn't Born? I can't remember. Did you take a class with us? Or did you send it? I don't know. I didn't. Did you take a class with us, or did I go over it with you one-on-one? And did we go over? Did you send it in? Because if you said you received the wrong passport, it might actually be the correct one. But I have to, because it's not necessarily even what it says as much as updating your information. But we can look at it to see. Okay, yeah. So I'm not sure if you did it correctly or not. I know you said you checked out the right boxes, but yeah, I'd have to see what you put. But even if you got a passport back, it it doesn't necessarily. So it's and I can't remember. I think it's number 5 and number 6 on the passport. They're going to look different. Like if you get a passport, if you're talking about lawfully speaking, if your passport with a DS11, so if your DS11 this form is done correctly, 5 and 6 are going to look different than 5 and 6 look a regular one. Everything else will be exactly the same. And when I say 5 and 6 will look differently, I think 5 is going to be the same, but 6 is going to be different than 5. But I have to look at it. You said, when do we say in front of friends? When do we say it in front of friends because we feel embarrassed to actually be attracted to someone our friends would disapprove of? Deep down, we actually see an attraction there. But once again, I don't know if friends need to worry about it. It's your relationship, and it's going to be what you develop. But once again, also too, I might be the wrong person to go down that road, because if we're not careful, we're kind of traveling down the road of dating. See, if you're going to be a wife, a husband finds you. And so if a husband finds you, you check his bona fides. You be the best wife you can. That's what you're called to be. Even if you never become a physical wife of a man, you're always a physical wife of your husband. So every woman's ultimate goal is to become not a wife, once again, attached to a man. If you're talking about the culture, right? If you're talking about, especially those of you who are talking about scripturally or spiritually inclined stuff, then the goal is to become your husband's wife. And if a man is worthy of taking care of your husband's wife, then you go ahead and are not a man, a husband, right? Because there's a different level of man or husband is higher than man. So once you get to a different level, now you can start talking about those different things, right? But if you're talking about just, I'm attracted, let's go ahead and see to each other, let's kind of see how it works, let's go out on a date, blah blah. I'm probably not the person to talk to on that, because that's not the culture that I'm of. Still, nevertheless, so because there's going to be times when your friends just don't need to be in your business, including why are you attracted to somebody. Now, if you know something about the person that's wrong, then maybe that's something that comes up. And by the way, it'll come up over the time to where you're preparing yourself for them and the person's preparing a place for you. Everybody in the community is going to know about it. So if somebody sees something that's wrong, before you lay down with each other and become husband and wife, you do those things, right? But if we're talking about like dating, then in dating you would worry about this stuff. But if somebody presents himself as a husband to you, maybe you ask your friends about it. But first, people you should go to is your parents. Now, then, once again, we have another issue, though. Are your parents doing this stuff? Are they living by the culture? Are they in a position to do this? Did they teach this? Are they married themselves? Are they after divorce type situation? Because anybody, as far as the Bible is concerned, anybody you sleep with, that's supposed to be marriage. So did you have these marriages that should have never existed, but you kept having them over and over and over again and got all these divorces and got all this DNA memory and different things? Because even if nobody ever put sperm inside you, you know that you still carry the DNA of those you sleep with. So, see, this is why cultural relevance is important. You said, no, you're not on that. You're preparing yourself for your future husband. You didn't have great examples growing and learning. Amen. And I apologize if I came across as I was unfairly being unfairly accusatory. It was not my intent to do so. I was just saying, if we're going down that route, because caring about friends and stuff is kind of the dating route. Maybe I should have said it like that. Family and friends and being like, oh, what do you think? And blah, blah. It's kind of like, no, well, the husband will, he will show himself. Now, is it okay to let somebody know that you find them attractive? I'm not saying that. Yeah, let them know you're attractive, blah, blah. But why is it everybody's business? Right? Especially if you're in tune with the spirit too. Okay, thank you for comprehending. But like I said, I got to go ahead and get ready to take my leave. We have to be ready for Sister Judith, and so we're going to do so in a little bit. I appreciate you all for being on today. Thank you guys so much. And I got to actually get ready to go now. I'll try to be back probably in the same spot and position when Sister Judith's ready to go. She'll be on at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time on her TikTok channel, Judith Lewis 56, for those that are interested. And we'll try to be on there. We appreciate you. Ministerial staff, I'm going to have something that I'm going to send to you guys virtually. And also, we've been having so much issue with signal and stuff in general. This week it's been difficult for me to do anything. Those of you who are coming to the Feast of Tabernacles, we need to get your tents ordered. If you're not going to be carrying your tent with you and you want to just have it ordered on this side, we need to get your tent. And if you're going to be doing your tent and sleeping bag, we need to get that stuff ordered for you guys ASAP. All right. So we're going to try and get that stuff together for you all, and we see who's willing. I don't even think we've done assigned seating. We're going to have, obviously some single men, some single women, some married families. So um, we got to start looking at who might even be willing to share some tent stuff like that. We might be able to, even get some big tents and have, some of the single sisters even just be in one together where you all still have room, stuff like that. And we'll start looking at that and getting that information out to you guys. But I got to get ready to take my leave real quick. Remember, Sister Judith will be on in a little bit. I am going to put up her, let's see, I'm going to put up her, if I still have them. I should still have it. And we've been putting it up from time to time, and she put it up at the end of her last live session that she did on TikTok, where you had the homework assignment for what she was going to be doing for this week. So I'm going to put that up real quick. Give me a second. Let me flip the screen so you got, oh, wow. Okay, there we go. I don't know what that was. Okay. So give me a second so you guys can see that. So if you're going to be joining us on TikTok, that's what was asked. So hopefully you had already gotten that stuff together, and hopefully you've been sprouting stuff as well. I don't even know if you need sprouts for this time. Doesn't look like it. You got one bunch of broccoli, quarter cup pecans, quarter cup pine nuts, one small onion, 10 cherry tomatoes, one apple, one lemon, quarter cup olive oil or veganese. I'm not sure what that is. And then serve it on a leaf of lettuce. So we're going to do that together. So if you got some of those items or something close to it, you guys can feel free to join. That's going to be on her channel, Judith Lewis 56, JUDITHLEWIS, and that'll be at the top of the hour. So we appreciate you guys. Oh, it's vegan mayo. That's what it is. Okay, I had no clue. So okay, there you go. But we appreciate you guys. We honor you. We're going to go ahead and take our leave. I'll put a number that you guys can text or email on the screen. Because of our signal stuff this week, I know class and stuff has been real bad. We're going to have probably some Patreon stuff that we're going to catch up on, as well as some class stuff. So if you guys catch us on some of the stuff, we got to finally make it. Like literally all my stuff has been cut off to where we couldn't even get and where we were supposed to reside in this evening. Like I had no signal. I couldn't even use money last night. So it is what it is. But we praise y'all that we were able to get done what we need to get done. Here's some information. If you'd like to be able to reach out to us via text or email or even hashtag Find Kofi, you can look that up on Google, as well as you can look that up on our YouTube or on YouTube. That's our YouTube channel. So if you'd like to be able to get more information about any of that, feel free to go there, take a screenshot. We ask that you keep praying for our Sister Nadine, and others that are going through some things right now in our families and in our family at SOC. And we thank you. We appreciate you guys. We look forward to talking to you guys soon. And just as a reminder for tomorrow, we will have our live session at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. We'll have our Shabbat service or the podcast at 10 a.m. Eastern New York time. At 11 a.m. Eastern New York time, we still have Shabbat school for our children. At 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time, I have to look. I think tomorrow is going to be everybody at Alabama. Not 100% sure, but I think it's everybody. Oh, well, and everybody in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky. And yeah, I think that's it. Right? I think that's what we're looking for. Everybody who's in Alabama, Kentucky, Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Louisiana. And then the week after, we'll do our meetup for everybody on the West Coast. I think that's what we're doing. All right. So we thank you guys. We appreciate you. Thanks for being on. We honor the King and Queen in each and every one of you, even if you're not living inside that kingdom or queendom yet. We appreciate the potential King and Queen in each and every one of you. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Please check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we thank you so much for being on. We appreciate you. You guys take care. Have a great day. And prayerfully, for the first time in it feels like forever, we'll see you this evening. And we'll let you guys know in advance if we're going to be doing herbalism or if we're going to have to make herbalism recording for this week as well. But thank you guys for being on. Take care of each other, and we will talk to you guys soon. Reminder, MITs and men, we're going to have not just this Saturday, tomorrow, but even next Saturday, we're going to have our meetings. Okay, so y'all be ready, be present. We thank you guys so much. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you guys soon. All right, shalom, family. Peace.